The Seattle Sounders' brand new 2025 kit is here, inspired by two traditional Southern Coast Salish weaving techniques, twilling and twinning. These techniques, passed down through generations, honor the resilience, deep-rooted ties, and creativity that define the cultural fabric of this region. The striking deep blue jersey will be worn by the Sounders for the next 2 seasons to honor the club's deep connection with the Puget Sound and shared responsibility as stewards of the greater Salish Sea watershed. Backing up that commitment, the Seattle Sounders will donate up to $50,000 to benefit community charities around the Puget Sound region. To get your very own Salish Sea kit, visit lobbingscorchers.com/kit. That's lobbingscorchers.com/KIT.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome into a special rescheduled Wednesday night edition of Lobbing Scorchers Under the Lights. Got a great show for you all planned this evening. We're going to be talking about the Seattle Sounders coming off their biggest win of the season and looking ahead to this weekend's matchup against the Colorado Rapids. Transfer window closed today. There's some movement around the league. Going to talk about that later on. We're going to hit some Brian Schmetzer sound. We're going to hit some Stefan Frei sound. So appreciate everyone accommodating the schedule change. It's for a good reason. The reason that I'm doing this on Wednesday is because I'm working CCC tomorrow night, Inter Miami versus Vancouver Whitecaps. So I'm going to talk about that game later as well. Going to be a jam-packed show. Before we do all that, I did want to thank our new YouTube members. We have 3 new YouTube members. Shout out to Jake Klein, John, no last name, and Corey Watterson. Thank you all so much for becoming YouTube members, getting access to all the bonus content that we've been doing that people seem to be enjoying. So if you want to support the show, that's a great way to do that. Also, like the video, get us in the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, like, comment, subscribe, rate 5 stars, review it, tell your friends, all that good stuff. But the first order of business tonight is going to be previewing Seattle's upcoming opposition, the Colorado Rapids. And to do so, got another special guest that I'm very excited to welcome to the show here tonight. We have got Mark Asher Goodman, a.k.a. the Soccer Rabbi of Holding the High Line. He does great work sweating the Colorado Rapids coverage all year long. Mark, thank you so much for joining the show tonight, and thank you for staying up late. I know you're based on the East Coast, so appreciate you doing this late night MLS session talking Sounders Rapids. How are you doing this evening?
Yeah, I'm good. Long day at work, kicking it in the salt mines as a working rabbi. When I'm not covering the Colorado Rapids, we do our podcast usually on Tuesday nights. So it worked out really good. And we did our little preview of Seattle, and I'm not going to waste your time finding out what you think of your team, but it's a pretty interesting year you guys are having.
Yeah, no, you can absolutely at any point, if you got questions about the Sounders, feel free to hit me. But I'm excited to dig into this game with you and talk to you. We followed each other on Twitter for and now
like a decade.
For like a decade, and I've never actually gotten to.
You have a baby face, so you must have been 12 when you started following me.
I was 21 probably. Yeah,
you still look 21, my man.
I appreciate that. I try. But excited to talk about the Colorado Rapids with you. But before we get into this game, I did want to ask you, I've never gotten the backstory. As a fellow Jew, I would like to know, how does one come across the moniker of the Soccer Rabbi? What can you share about the backstory of how that came about?
Yeah, I don't know if it's the world's most interesting story, but I'm full when you're a rabbi, you tell whatever story is available, because I am just spitting words like 5 nights a week. So I started off on Twitter, I think 13 years ago. The first account I made was for work and for politics and religion and all that stuff. And then very quickly I realized that a second persona that only handled sports was a good idea. So it was very alliterative to be the Rapids Rabbi, and that was a no big deal. And then 7 years ago, we left Colorado and I moved to Pittsburgh. And when I moved to Pittsburgh, I immediately hooked up with the local USL website, which is called Pittsburgh Soccer Now. And at that point, Rapids Rabbi didn't make a whole lot of sense anymore. And right around the same time, there was a Twitter handle for a guy who was the Soccer Rabbi. And the Soccer Rabbi was it was a little bit of a funny handle, because the guy was an assistant coach. He's a Jewish guy whose name I forget, unfortunately. He was an assistant coach for Phoenix Rising. And he changed his handle all of a sudden. He was like, I think he decided it was unprofessional and a little bit. I think he'd probably gotten a bunch of people reaching out and asking if they could do his bar mitzvah. And he was like, I'm not actually a rabbi, like I'm a soccer guy and I'm Jewish. I thought it was a funny name. So he dumped the handle, and I just moved to Pittsburgh, and I went, I kind of need to rebrand anyway. So I changed my handle to Soccer Rabbi, and that's the history. Now, the quick other funny story is last year I usually do, since I live in Pittsburgh and I cover the Rapids, I don't have an MLS team in town. So I have to travel to see the Rapids anyways, which is kind of cool. It means, you slap down $500 and you can go anywhere in the continental United States or Canada to go see your team. You're always an away fan, right? And sometimes I go to Colorado, but sometimes I go somewhere else. Last year, I was in LA, which is where I was born and raised. And I took my dad and my son to a Galaxy game. And the Galaxy guys, a couple of the guys from a couple of the supporters groups were like, oh, you have to come by the tailgate. We've been following you for a really long time. Be so cool to meet you. We'll hook you up. And they did. They hooked me up with beers and tacos, and it was really, really nice. Like, the MLS traveling scene. Like, people take good care of you if you're hooked up. So I was hanging out, and there was this guy who was ripped. I mean, he was like 6 beers in, and he was like, oh my God, I love you on Twitter. You're so awesome. And he started to tell me these stories about like things that I had said on Twitter. And the funny thing, it was the first thing he said. And I kind of like furrowed my brow and just said to myself, I don't think I said that on Twitter. And then he said something else like 5 minutes later. And I went, I definitely didn't say that on Twitter. And I absolutely know who it was. There is another guy who is the sports rabbi, and he is also a rabbi. He's an Orthodox rabbi who lives in Israel, and he mostly covers Jerusalem and Tel Aviv basketball, but he also covers the soccer league in Israel a little bit. But he's not me, and I'm not him. This guy who's drunk at a tailgate was like, oh my God, I love your stuff. And I had to be very politely just kind of like, yeah, thanks. And it wasn't me. So
that's awesome. I love that backstory. As many Jews as we can get in MLS media, I'm all for it. And you and Matt Pollard do.
The last guest podcast I did was with Dave Goss, who also is
nice.
A fellow member of the tribe.
Yeah,
Goss
he is.
Goss is a lovely guy, and Ben Bear, who used to do whatchamacallit.
He used to be my boss, actually.
Ben Bear?
Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah. So he also is a Hebrew, a Red Sea pedestrian, as we like to call ourselves. So yeah, it's been a good time. It's good people.
You and Matt Pollard do great work with holding the high line. Yeah, anytime I need Rapids takes or news, you guys are where I go. So excited to talk about this game with you. It's coming at an interesting time in the season for Seattle, like you mentioned. They have had it's been like an up and down start to the season out here, but they're off a huge win against Nashville, looking to keep the momentum going. Mark, the first thing that I've been doing on these shows, where I've been trying to find guests for every upcoming opposition that Seattle has, and the first thing that I do is I like to give my outsider take on the club and the team as just like a neutral observer, and then you can tell me if the way I perceive it from the outside is aligns with how you see it on the day-to-day, following the team every single day.
Yeah, I love that. That's great.
So here's my take. Colorado Rapids, and usually I go more of an on-field analysis with this, like their recent form, their good players, and we'll get to all that. But I wanted to ask about it from a little bit of a broader lens, and kind of talk about the Rapids as a club a little more holistically before we get into the game. When I think about the Colorado Rapids, I think about a club that has had on-field results that are respectable, if not amazing, throughout their history. They had that MLS Cup early in the 2010s. It seems like there have been periods of time where they've been a playoff contender or a club that finishes up near the top of the West table. They made the West Final in 2016. I'll never forget that because I was at the game, the Jordan Morris flu game. And they've had they won the West a couple years ago. So there's been decent periods of success for the Rapids. But I feel like it seems like there's always this prevailing feeling, whether it's related to ownership or something else, that there's this kind of gap between them becoming a really, like, going from a good, respectable team to an elite team and really competing with the upper tier clubs in the West. And and I think the perception, at least, is that ownership has a little bit, not necessarily their top priority, right? Like, they have like 5 different things. So that's sort of how I think of the Rapids from the outside. Would you agree with that analysis?
Pretty much. I mean, Stan Kroenke and his son Josh Kroenke own the Rapids. The complicated thing about this, which is a really interesting debate that you could have, is, Stan Kroenke owns the LA Rams and Arsenal Football Club and the Nuggets and the Avalanche. And so he has the experience of spending obscene amounts of money for high-end teams and high-end talent. And then he also owns a lacrosse team and an MLS team. And we joke about the fact that we're not entirely aware. We're not entirely sure that Stan Kroenke knows that he owns an MLS team. And that is a fundamental problem. A second fundamental problem with the way we've often talked about KFC as an entity is we think they like to own an asset and maintain it at the minimal level so that it appreciates in value, right? It's like owning a house, right? That you hope to sell in 15 years, but you don't really want to live in. So you don't need a jacuzzi. And if the steps in the back are kind of broken, you don't really care because they don't use them anyways. So every couple of years, you slap some paint on the outside and hope the neighbors don't complain, right? And that's kind of the Colorado Rapids. They're not a high priority, high spend need. The other thing is, because they built their stadium in 2007 in the suburbs, it's not a downtown stadium. Because they're an MLS original team from MLS 1.0, and because they kind of haven't really made any significant upgrades since the MLS 2.0 era, they don't have kind of the cool sex appeal of any of the other cool teams in MLS. LAFC, Seattle Sounders, Atlanta United, NYCFC, like, we just don't have the cool cachet. And so the stadium holds 15,000, early spring before kids are like out of school and the weather's good. You can regularly see like 9,000 people in the stands, although they'll list it as 12. It's hard to compete at that level. They've never, until MLS went to the wraparound Apple deal, their TV deals were awful. They were one of the last teams in the league to have a front of kit sponsor. So they've always been kind of like a small market team in the league. Their management have been really good. I mean, they use high-end analytics. Porrick Smith was the GM. Now he's the president.
He's good. I think he's good.
He's great. And the former assistant GM was a guy I did a phenomenal interview with a number of years ago for American Soccer Analysis named Fran Taylor. He's the sporting director now. The dude just absolutely has been using advanced metrics and math and the highest level data science to analyze players on opposing teams, on prospective players that they want to sign, on current players. They're just as far ahead on the curve as they possibly can, while also playing Moneyball. So they've basically we've been calling them the Moneyball Rapids for almost 8 years now, since Porrick came in as the manager. They get a lot done, but ultimately, the famous line from Billy Beane is, my system works in the playoffs, and then when you get to the playoffs, expletive. Like, you just don't know. And that's kind of how the Rapids are, which is they're probably not good enough with high enough end DP talent to do anything in the playoffs, but they're built to kind of like sneak into the playoffs or not sneak into the playoffs every single year. And that's the book on Colorado. And it's been the book on Colorado for 10 years now. And I've been covering the team for 10 years.
Yeah. See, on one level, that's impressive that they've managed to stay as consistently competitive as they have. given all those things that you just mentioned. On another level, I think it's unfortunate because, I've been to Dick's Sporting Goods Park a few times now. I went for when it was they had a game on the 4th of July, like a long time ago.
Sure, they actually have a 4th of July game, and they're one of the only teams in MLS who got the league to guarantee them a 4th of July game since 1996. They've never not had 4th of July. It's crazy.
Yeah, and there seems to be like a genuine appetite and enthusiasm for the game, like in Denver, and you wish they would maybe spend a little more, not be the Moneyball Rapids, and capitalize that more than they have. But I think you do have to acknowledge that like Pedrag Smith, is that his name?
Yeah, it's pronounced Porrick because it's Irish.
Oh, Porrick. Okay,
but you're good.
He honestly, I mean, I never knew that in depth about how much he uses analytics and how much he really finagles it like that. But
he's good. He was the FIFA Financial Fair Play Compliance Officer based out of Ireland before he came to the Rapids, and Fran was in the data analytics department of Arsenal. And I think they met at some sort of thing. And when Porrick moved to the Rapids, he kind of went over to Arsenal. He's like, "Hey, you got one of these guys and like the 12th guy on your analytics staff, can I have him?" And they were like, "Sure." And so they moved him over. But they're both really smart guys. And then on top of that, the director of development, I think he's changed titles recently, Brian Crookham, has been there for 15 years. And the one thing that the Rapids have that probably is better than, almost all the Cascadia teams, except maybe Vancouver, there aren't too many teams in the league who have the system that the Rapids have, except maybe the Galaxy, which is a phenomenal soccer academy system. The Rapids spent money on their academy before it was cool. And also the other high-end so-called travel teams in Colorado are really, really good. I mean, I live in Pittsburgh, and I've been following club soccer and high school soccer in Pittsburgh, and it's like levels below where they're at in Colorado. And the Rapids will churn out one or two high-end homegrown players who are ready to join the team almost every year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a remarkable thing, which helps the Moneyball aspect, because the HGP program in MLS is among the best in the world. There are so many advantages to developing your own players. Cole Bassett and Ollie Laraz, the Rapids' second and third goalkeepers, are all homegrowns. And basically that means financially for guys like Josh and Stan Kroenke, they're free. And those guys love, cheap players.
Yeah.
And then, both Cole and Sam Vines have been flipped to Europe for money, and then got flipped back, when it didn't work out. So, it's all profit to KSC, and they're thrilled with it. And so if you can do that, and they have for the last couple of years, it keeps the team kind of mid-table, which is, pretty decent. I'm not looking a gift horse in the mouth. I don't think this team generally deserves, based on the money they spend, to be any higher than 12th or 11th in the table. The fact that they regularly finish between 7 and 5, I'd love an MLS club, but I'll take it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's interesting. Mark, we got a question from our chat for you. Actually, Zippy Tuna with the $5 super chat. Thank you so much for the support. Says, "I'll be at the game on Saturday. What should a visiting fan do around a Rapids game? Thanks for the great coverage all." Thank you, Zippy Tuna.
You got two good options. One is to head downtown and go to one of the Rapids bars. I forget which ones C38 is doing bus service to, but people will roll into the bar around, noon, 1 or 2, have a couple drinks, watch some of the European games. Then they'll hop on the bus, have a few more drinks, and show up at Dick's. The other thing is visiting fans at the C38 tailgate. C38 is the one supporters group the Rapids have. The history of that very quickly is there were like 4 or 5 small supporters groups, and they, with the team's help, they kind of like joined and changed names and became Centennial 38. The name is, of course, because the state of Colorado was the 38th state, and it was founded in 1876, 100 years after the founding of the United States. So C38 has a great tailgate. I think it's $9, and it's all you can drink and all you can eat, which is insane. It's on the south side of the stadium. They usually kick off, if the game is at 7:30, the tailgate starts at like 4:30. I went to the one this year. before the CONCACAF Champions Cup match against LAFC. It was the third coldest game in Major League Soccer history. That's the second time I've been to the coldest game in Major League Soccer history. I am an idiot.
Was that the one where it was like snowing?
I went to one where it was snowing. This one, it was not snowing. It was just really cold.
Okay.
And I shoot all the photography for our website and for our blog, for our Substack. I basically try and shoot all of it for the year, all in one game that I'm at. And so I was shooting everything, and I got really good shots of LAFC coming out of the tunnel, and the look on the face of Hugo Lloris and Olivier Giroud when they walked out into that 6-degree Colorado winter with a little bit of wind chill, they looked horrified.
What
they
did
were
I
like,
get myself into?
Put me back on a plane to France. You know, they looked so unhappy. It was really the look on their face was kind of worth it.
So. I love a good reality check for players like that. Like, you think you're going to LAFC, Hollywood beach vacation. No, you're going to Commerce City, freaking Colorado, and you're going to play in 6-degree weather, and you're going to like it.
The last time of that game happened, it was the last year I lived in Colorado. It was 2017. The Rapids played because they made it to the Western Conference Championship in 2016 against Seattle Sounders, and they played Toronto in the first round, and that was also a miserable game. In both games, by the way, players kind of vaguely or overtly complained that the game should have never been played because the conditions were too bad and dangerous. So
I was gonna say, like, I went to Toronto both times Seattle played an MLS Cup there, and like my take has always been it was inhumane. It was more of a survival test than a soccer game, but that's what you get sometimes.
So I was so my day job as a rabbi, I am a pulpit rabbi now. I have a synagogue here in Pittsburgh, but in Colorado, I was a school rabbi. I worked at the Jewish day school, and I was a big booster of our boys and girls soccer teams and our boys and girls basketball teams. In Colorado, when it snows, every high school soccer player knows the drill, which is the kids all grab shovels. I'm going to shovel the lines because then you know where the lines are, and you kick the ball in the snow, and that's it. That's how you play. And you just, you run, you wear 2 pairs of socks, you run in at the half, you warm up, and you go out and you do it for 40 more minutes. And that's how it is. Like, that's one of the great things about Colorado soccer, which is the kids are tough. They are just absolutely Cole Bassett and Ollie LaRaz. They complained a little because I heard them yelling on the field, but like they grew up this way. This is just how it is. And I love that.
Yeah, no, it's great. All right, Mark, let's get into this game itself a little bit. And the first thing I have to ask you about, because I know everyone who's watching right now is going to want to know, we need the Josh Atencio update. Obviously, these two teams made a pretty big trade over the offseason. Josh Atencio, homegrown player for Seattle, went to the Rapids for, I think it was $1.3 million in conditional GAM. So a pretty big intra-league trade. And I think the reaction here was, I think a lot of people were sad to see Josh Atencio go. He grew up here. He came up through Seattle's youth academy. He broke through with the first team. He had some really genuinely good stretches of play for the first team. He got his first MLS goal, which was a banger. So he really came of age here. And I think the fan base, he had endeared himself to the fan base. All the homegrown guys that come up and break through like that do. But I think he and Obed Vargas really, really did. So I think people got it because it was a big sum of money for the most part. For the most part, people got it, but definitely sad to see him go. So what can you tell us about how Josh has fit in with the Rapids so far? I know he's starting week in, week out, which is what I wanted to see him get the opportunity to do. But what do you make of him as a player and for just his future as a Colorado Rapid coming there from Seattle?
So knowing the formation the Rapids have been playing at the beginning of the season and now is useful in this conversation. At the beginning of the season, the Rapids rolled out the same formation they were in last year, which is a 4-2-3-1. So double pivot, 2 defensive midfielders. And last year, their most successful way of doing that was Ollie LaRaz and Cole Bassett. And Cole Bassett's a bit more of a natural 8. He's more of a shuttler, box-to-box midfield kind of guy, can kind of do everything. And he's a bit offensively minded. Cole Bassett is kind of famous in MLS last year. And every broadcast, you would hear the broadcasters say, Cole Bassett has run the most miles of any player in Major League Soccer. Like, the dude just has a motor that won't quit. The challenge was that the Rapids had rumored to be going to some other formation, and there was talk about it being a 3-4-3 or a 5-2-2-1. And then ultimately what it turned out to be, which was, I think, a surprise to almost all the pundits, is a 4-4-2 that's really more of a 4-2-2-2, which was something that if you're a real nerd in soccer, you know that Red Bull International, all three of the major Red Bull teams were running about 4 or 5 years ago. It kind of looks like an empty bucket 4-4-2 where there's two defensive midfielders, but those two deep lying midfielders have a lot of responsibility. They can be a little bit more box to box. They can sometimes kind of work out to the wings while the two front midfielders kind of pinch in. I think what the Rapids thought was Atencio was an undervalued asset for Seattle. He was coming off the bench a lot. He wasn't starting as much as he could. The Rapids were going to rate him higher. And the problem that Colorado had was they basically chucked in the offseason everybody who was a natural winger except Kevin Cabral, whose contract was unmovable. And then they moved their team and then they just stacked central midfielders. They went out and got Atencio. They went out and got Ted Pietro from DC United. They already had Ollie Larraz, Cole Bassett, Georgi Mihailovic, and Connor Ronan. And so I just named 6 central midfielders, all of whom are supposed to start. And the question was, what the hell are they doing? And the answer was basically that they were reformulating the midfield around central midfielders, and central midfielders who are kind of capable of doing everything. Guys who could be a 6, but if you needed, they could be an 8. The only guys on that list of the 6 midfielders I mentioned who are properly a natural 10 is Georgi Mihailovic. Everybody else is like a 6 or an 8. It's a little bit, the 4-2-2-2 kind of plays a little bit like total football. They make little triangles. They press in spots. They're running a lot. They have to provide defense a lot. They move into transition from defense to offense very quickly. And I think what they saw in Josh Atencio was a guy who possessed the ball very well. He received the ball very well. He was neat and clean, and he was pretty dangerous in the tackle. He was a reliable defender. And I think they thought, well, this is an upgrade over Connor Ronan or Ollie Larraz. And so Ronan wound up starting the season with a series of injuries. They had no choice but to go with Larraz. And so it's been Larraz and Atencio. Larraz has been the pit bull kind of running around causing mayhem, and Atencio's been the kind of safety, deep lying guy. And he's mostly done the job. My only complaint about Atencio is, I think, both statistically and in terms of just the eye test, his ability to create dangerous progressive passes or progressive dribbles is a little underwhelming. And I think that bodes poorly for whether he winds up staying. Like I mentioned, there's 6 midfielders for 4 positions. And Ted Pietro started the season with a shoulder injury that required surgery, and then he was recovering from that. So I think Atencio might go to the bench if he can't start to develop one of those dimensions and become more of an offensive threat. That being said, right now, he's the most reliable lockdown defensive D-mid the Rapids have. And he's very quietly doing the job. He doesn't get as many touches as the other guys, but he's often, when I watch the game, he's the guy that you don't see who
Right.
I think it's a Busquets quote that I'm thinking, or maybe it's a Xavi quote, right? If you don't watch him, you don't see all the things he does, but if you watch him, you see the whole game. And that's a little bit of Atencio, which is he steps into lanes really, really well, and he really confounds the opposing attack quite well. So that's something that I've noticed about him that I really appreciate, but it doesn't wind up on the score sheet, and it's not as impressive as some of the metrics of the other players.
Yeah, it's kind of a similar storyline to when he was here in that, like you said, he does all those little things really well that you might not notice, but you would wanted to see him like contribute on the stat sheet or contribute on offense more. And I still think there's plenty of time for him to develop that facet of his game. I think the whole thing really, which Nathan mentioned right here, for sure, Statty is gone, but happy to see him get a chance to be a regular starter. That's exactly how I felt about it. I was sad to see him go, but like realistically, he was buried on the depth chart here, especially with the full-on breakout of Obed Vargas, he wasn't going to be getting the minutes that he needed here to develop that stuff that you're talking about. So I'm rooting for him to do that in Colorado. And, you know, I was watching an interview that he gave leading up to this game with the official Colorado Rapids podcast with Drew Moore. And he was not hiding it. He was like, I'm up for this game. Like, I'm really looking forward to it. Looking forward to competing against my old teammates and taking 3 points off him. That's what he was saying. Nice. So I love that. I love that he's motivated for it. He wants to stick it to Seattle. I expect him to be going hard in this game. Mark, the next topic I wanted to hit with you, Chris Armas. This hire, last year was his first year with the Rapids. And I remember the widespread sentiment among MLS fans when that hire was made. It got clowned on, honestly. Like, people were like, that is a bad hire. He had a really bad run with Toronto. But even at the time, I was like, I don't really think this is as crazy a hire as people are making it out to be. Obviously, everything in Toronto blew up, but look at how it's gone since he left. It's not like that organization was on very much stable ground. And like, how much of that could you really blame on Armas? At the time, maybe people thought that it was his fault. I think since he's left, you can kind of see that. I think no matter who the coach there was, they were going to have a hard time. And if you go back to his Red Bulls days, he had that team playing really well at certain points. He went and was an assistant at Man U for a while, has talked about how much he learned from that and before he came back to the Rapids. So I guess, what have you just made of the Chris Armas era so far? Because when you look at how it's actually panned out on the field, I feel like the returns have actually been pretty good. Certainly a lot better than people were predicting when he got hired.
First of all of what you said, Ari, is spot on. So well done. You did your homework. You know,
I know my Chris Armas.
I got to talk before the season started. We called up Mark Fishkin, who's the Seeing Red podcast. Yeah. He's the NYRB dude, and he's been covering that team forever. I think he started with the team in '96, so when they were Metro Stars. So he's OG, and I love that guy. He was pretty down on him. He was pretty much like, Armas is not the sharpest tool in the shed. It's pretty simplistic and lunk-headed. Our NYRB made him do the press. It kind of made him look good. He kind of squandered everything in the playoffs, and they were a really good team in the regular season, and then they got blown out in the playoffs, and then he went over to Toronto and was part of their staff when they were a train wreck. So I don't think much of him. And then he came over to the Rapids, and I was kind of like, well, we'll see. And I think the thing that we didn't know coming in, that I gathered really quickly from both press conferences that I was at or press conferences that my podcast partner Matt was at, because Matt covers every single match the Rapids are in, as well as all the Open Cup games of all the smaller teams in Colorado. The dude is a madman. So he's the managing editor of Burgundy Wave, which is the one Colorado soccer website that's been around since 2011, I think, so, or 2009. Anyhow, Matt's take and his kind of like talking to Chris and seeing him at training regularly was, he's a great players coach. He's really good with players. He really talks to them and knows them very well. He's warm and bubbly and effusive. He's good with the media, which was not the way Robin Fraser was. When we talked to Robin Fraser, he was, I'm going to use a big vocab word for you SAT seniors out there who are trying to get ready for next year in college. Taciturn. He was quite taciturn. He kept everything was, kind of like standard quotations from coaches, and there wasn't a lot of information coming out. He kept those cards close to the vest. And I think that wasn't great. And before that was Anthony Hudson, and Anthony Hudson was probably woefully underqualified for the job.
Yeah,
and he didn't do very well. Hudson's biggest problem was not that he couldn't come up with the tactics, or that he couldn't identify young players who were good, which is why he wound up with the USMNT, working with their young players. His biggest problem was he made lineup selections that weren't very good. Armas seems to have a good grasp of all of those fundamentals. He likes a pressing attack. He has a flexible approach to formation. He seems to be working well with the front office in terms of identifying players that he wants and getting the right ones, and not just getting his guys, but also getting guys who are available and will fit a system. He works really well with players, and he gives them confidence, and he gets trust. I mean, I think the flowering and the rebirth of Zack Steffen is probably a function somewhat of Chris Armas. Zack Steffen was obviously on the outs at Manchester City and with his loan teams. He went to Europe and it kind of all fell apart. And that meant that he was dropped from the USMNT. You know, I'm sure his agents reached out to MLS and were like, can you find this guy a job? And Colorado was like, come on. And he came to Colorado for a decent amount of money, but not a lot. And they gave him the starting job. And statistically last year, and with the eye test, he wasn't great. And Armas kept him. And whatever they did over the offseason and whatever they told him worked, because he's
having an insane year. He's far and away the best goalkeeper in the league right now.
Statistically speaking, his goals minus expected goals is off the charts good. It's better. Matt Doyle pointed out in a post last week and in his article for MLSsoccer.com that statistically speaking, he's having a season that is like by a huge margin better than even the season that Matt Turner had the year that Arsenal snapped him up. So he is
he stumped for him for MVP. He literally stumped for him. It's not a bad take. Yeah. That's how good he's been.
No, and it's pure insane shot stopping. And if you've watched the Rapids week in, week out like I have, it's like a shot. Like the Rapids will have 3 shots at them that should normally go in that Zack will turn away, and they will win that game 1-0. And they've had like 2 or 3 of those games. So statistically speaking, the Rapids, I think, are supposed to be in 11th, and they're like in 4th.
Yeah.
And the reason is Zack Steffen, and that's it.
Oh man, God, I totally forgot about the Anthony Hudson era, but
we have tried to.
Anthony Hudson is the author of what is still to this day my favorite MLS coach quote in the history of the league, which is when
I know what you're gonna say.
It was after like a really tough loss. The team wasn't doing very well. He was under fire from the fan base. Everyone knew probably that he was getting fired soon. And they're like, Anthony, what's going on with the team right now? Like, how do you get them to play better? And he says, we are fighting at the bottom with a bottom group of players.
That's right.
Can't say that.
My favorite.
He was right, but you don't say that publicly.
That was his second to last game. It was an away game in Atlanta. And of course, you know how MLS works. So away games, there's no independent Colorado reporters who flew to Atlanta to cover that game. That was a softball question from the official Rapids flack. I believe that was Jordan Angeli, who no longer works for the team and is now, or does a little bit of stuff on the side for the team, but is really working to help bring Denver and NWSL team, which is like moving ahead really quickly. Jordan's going to be in senior leadership there, which is great. She's a friend of our podcast. We love Jordan. She's amazing. So she threw out a softball question like, Anthony, what's going wrong with the Rapids right now that you guys are struggling? And not only did that little clip I'm giving you the famous backstory here that you would never know otherwise. Not only did that clip get picked up, but the only reason that clip got picked up was that was the raw 7-minute interview of Anthony Hudson, or 5-minute interview after the game. When the Rapids comms team got that interviewed, and they were the only people who really had it, they just took it, they were, to be blunt, I'm going to be a little harsher, they were lazy. They just threw it up on the internet and left it there. And a couple of smart people were like, holy crap, I can't believe you said this. I
was among those people.
About 8 hours after the Rapids comms team threw that up, they took it off their website and they re-edited it down to a 1-minute interview without all the nasty things that Anthony Hudson said. However, the damage was done. He managed one more game and they fired him. And that was that. That's a wonder. I don't know if you think that's as shocking as I was, but that's a wonderful little backstory, which was the only reason that quote ever got out was basically because the Rapids comms team probably didn't realize that they really should have edited their stuff before they threw it up.
See, no, you can't edit it out retroactive. Once it's out there, you got to just leave it
for real.
because like when you retroactive edit, it like brings even more attention to it. But it was
your deleted
legendary moment.
The president's deleted tweets are a big deal, right? Like once you delete a tweet, the internet remembers. Yeah.
Yeah. I just got one more player question for you, and then a little bit just looking ahead at what you're expecting from this game, and then I'll let you go, Mark. Thanks so much for the time. We got Mark Asher Goodman from Holding the High Line here, previewing Seattle Sounders versus Colorado Rapids. I was going to ask you about Zack Steffen, but we covered that. I mean, he's having an insane year. He's the best goalkeeper in the league right now statistically. We did have a chatter say, can you confirm this? Zack Steffen got 2 yellows after the final whistle last weekend. How's the backup? Is he suspended?
We don't know, and Matt brought that up on the website, which was that what the way Matt explained on our podcast last night. What Matt understood had happened was that a yellow card had been issued to Zack Steffen, but nobody knows why, at the very end of the game against Houston. And FootMob also reported that same yellow card actually as a red card. Then they undid that and called it a yellow card. And now nobody knows what happened or whether that card is holding. So Matt was also pointing that out yesterday. So we're still kind of waiting to see what happens.
Well, so I got people in chat saying that
I think it's a mistake. I think it's a yellow. That means I think it was 1 yellow that got accidentally recorded as 2 yellows, and it means that Zack Steffen will be playing this week.
We got people in chat saying that it's confirmed that he's out on the disciplinary committee decisions. So I'll have to look into that and find out if he is out, who would be getting the nod.
So Adam Beaudry is the backup. He was playing with Rapids 2, and he's a Denver University graduate. Phenomenal player. He had his first game ever for the Rapids in a loss. I think it was a 3-0 loss. That was not his fault. He didn't concede anything that wasn't obviously ticketed for the back of the goal anyways. So he's a solid kid. He's been called up by the U.S. youth national team on multiple occasions. In the last open window, there was a moment where the Rapids number 1 goalkeeper, the Rapids number 3 goalkeeper, and potentially also Beaudry, their number 2 goalkeeper, all had experienced call-ups with youth teams or senior teams. So Stefan was called up to the senior team for the Nations Cup. The number 3 goalkeeper, a guy named Zack Campagnolo, who was originally from Florida, moved to Colorado, he was called up too. And Beaudry was the only reason we think the U.S. youth national team didn't call up for the U23s was because the Rapids desperately needed him, and so they kept him. So he's a great player, phenomenal shot stopper, commands his box very well for a 19-year-old. He's great. So it is definitely a step down from Zack Steffen, but that's like saying, Maimonides is a step down from Moses. Yeah,
it's that's not even an exaggeration right now. Like Zack Steffen is Moses right now between the posts. It's I wonder if he keeps this up or like how sustainable it is, because like Doyle pointed it out. If he sustains this, it's like easily the greatest statistical.
No, math says it's impossible to keep doing this, and
I think it is.
I believe in God, but I also believe in math. So
yeah, exactly. I wanted to ask about the player who seems to be the centerpiece of everything the Colorado Rapids do right now, and that is Georgi Mihailovic.
Yeah.
This is an underrated number 10 in the league, and Mark, he kind of reminds me of a certain other underrated number 10 in the league that we have in Seattle by the name of Albert Rusnak. I the more I was thinking about it, the more there were kind of parallels there, and it's like a 10 that if the national pundits are rattling off all the best attackers in the league, their names might not come up in the first 5, but then if you look at the production and the eye test, maybe they do deserve to be talked about in that vein more than they are. I definitely think, I know a lot of our audience doesn't agree with me on the Rusnak thing, but I definitely view Mihailovic as that sort of player. This is a guy that he started his career as a homegrown with Chicago, got traded to CF Montreal for whatever reason, really broke out there, went to the Eredivisie. I feel like he did okay, but not amazing. Ends up coming back to the Rapids, and he's a very good player. I really like watching him play. Great vision, great passer. And he's like the heartbeat of the team. What do you think about Mihailovic's standing in the league in terms of the upper tier attackers, and just like from watching him every single game, what are those things that he does really, really well that Seattle is going to have to watch out for in this game coming up?
I think the comparison to Albert Rusnak is a phenomenal one. The only big difference is that the differences between age, which is that Mihailovic is 26 and Rusnak is 30.
Yeah.
So what you're getting with Mihailovic is in his prime Rusnak. And the comparison's phenomenal in the sense that they both feel like they play better in traffic. Not like the way Messi does, where Messi has such tight ball control that if you surround him with four guys, you feel like he's going to Houdini his way out of it anyways. With Mihailovic, it's more likely that he's going to see three guys and he's going to steer through them like traffic cones at very high speed. So I think the notable thing about the way both Rusnak in his prime and Mihailovic play is they play on the dribble at speed very well. And they run at you. They're not like incredibly fast players, but they're incredibly good, fast dribblers. Like they dribble with the ball at players and they make turns that are very good. And they also see the field in the final third very well while moving at high speed. So those are extremely deadly things that, looking at the Rapids over the last 8-10 years, they have not historically had, which is extremely dangerous players who break through into the final third and create mayhem. The Rapids have historically been very good in their own third or in the middle third, but couldn't do it in the final third. And that is really what Mihailovic gives them. The thing that Mihailovic really gives the team is, and I think last year he led the league in overall scoring contributions, 12 goals and 10 assists. And he did something like that with Montreal also. And then when he was with AZ Alkmaar in the Eredivisie, it just, they didn't use him that much. He came off the bench. He wasn't, used properly. And so it didn't work out for him. So he's been great. The Rapids have also done a great job of finding him support. Rafa Navajo, who's their Brazilian striker, has partnered really well with him, and they found ways of going. Cole Bassett provides relief for him in really good ways. Historically, the last year and a half, Kevin Cabral has stretched the field for them. So you had to kind of like drop the defense really deep to make sure that Cabral didn't run past you and go around you on the end. And then that meant that you took some pressure off the middle of the field. And then you have Djordje Mihailovic in there creating mayhem. So that's what he does. It's really great. We'll see how it turns out on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm proud of the Rusnak comp. I kind of just thought of that, but
it was good.
It's a good comp, and like all the things you mentioned about the parallels between them, I agree with, and I would add that they're both excellent on set pieces. So that's something that Seattle is really going to have to watch out for. This guy can hit these free kicks with the best of them. If the Rapids get any sort of dangerous area type set piece, I will not feel good about that. Seattle's got to minimize that in the same way that teams who play Seattle have to think about that with Rusnak.
Colorado's good on free kicks. They're not great on corners. A couple of years ago, they had a midfielder named Jack Price who was absolutely deadly.
Oh, he was one of the best free kickers I've ever seen. I
think he contributed 10 assists all on corner kicks in one MLS year, which was like among the best in history. It was a great year or two with Jack. Jack is he's also a phenomenal guy. He was one of the most fun players to interview. The only problem is if you use transcription software to turn his words into writing, his thick Midlands accent was so deep that like transcription software could not understand anything he said. And when you did an interview with him, you would have to go back and listen to something he said 4 times in order to figure out what he said, because he was so hard but he was an amazing soccer player. He's still playing, I think, in League One this year. But anyways, the Rapids do not have that level of free kickery and corner kickery this year. They're actually a very different team now. They mostly are going to try and score from open play. And then they're going to press and they're going to defend very well. So those are the things for Seattle to watch out for. But Seattle's a very good team. They're going to be hard to beat.
Jack Price hit not only the nicest free kicks that I've ever seen in MLS, he might have hit the nicest free kicks I've ever seen, period. That guy was unbelievable on those set pieces. He would rack these like 15 plus assist seasons. And like you said, like the majority of them were literally set pieces.
And the nicest guy in the world. I was going to ask, who on the current Seattle Sounders team that you've talked to is like just really like you would really enjoy interviewing them, or you really find them to be pleasant and kind?
Stefan Frei definitely comes to
Nice.
mind there. He's a really interesting, good guy to talk to. Christian Roldan is really good with media.
Nice.
And those guys are more for
like they have what to say, or they just they're just chill.
Well, they'll give you they're chill, but they'll actually like Steph Frei. If you ask him a question, I was going to play some of his sound later in the show because he did an interview this week. But like, he really will like internalize what you're asking, think about it, and then give you the real thoughtful answer. And it's not necessarily all boilerplate athlete quotes. There's you know, they're all going to have some element of that, but he really like tries to genuinely answer your question, which I've always appreciated. Christian we used to joke that he was the like if he was talking after the game, that's how you knew they lost, because even when he was 19, 20 years old on the team, they would like send him out there in times where I was like, why is Christian the one talking? Like, shouldn't this be Dempsey right now? Shouldn't this be like one? But he would always do it. He would always be professional about it, even when he was literally like 19. Right. And then throughout his career, he's just become a very like insightful guy when you ask him questions. And like neither of those guys mind doing media too. Like sometimes, you know, you get guys who very clearly like resent that they have to do it. Or like don't like doing it. And I think they are examples of guys who really understand that it's literally like part of the job to do this. So even if it's after a loss or it's not your favorite thing in the world, you got to do it. And Frei will always stand up after an L and like talk about it. Christian will always do that as well. So those are the two guys that I would name. But I would say like, honestly, a critique of the team that I've had in recent years is it's like too many nice guys. Like they're all just like such nice, happy, friendly guys, which is great. Like you need that. But like I've been campaigning for a little more like nasty presence, like guys with like Ozzy Alonso type guys. So I'm hoping that this Ryan Kent guy that they brought in can provide a little bit of that sort of like swagger and attitude.
I don't know. Raul Ruiz-Diaz did not seem like the most pleasant human being in the world. I don't know.
You know, he was actually a very like quiet, friendly guy off the field. But on the field, he was a dog.
Right. That's the thing. And I think that is really common in Major League Soccer. One of the nicest players the Rapids ever had was Sam Cronin. And Sam Cronin, as a defensive midfielder, would murder you. He would go through you 2-footed without thinking twice. And that's a thing where, like, I hear that about Diego Chara down at Portland, which is like the nicest, sweetest, most pleasant human being in the world, with 2 or 3 cute little kids, you know, in tow and whatever. But he will go through you and commit a red card and then wink at the referee and get himself a yellow instead, like, you know, like it's breathing. Amazing.
It's interesting how that switch flips. You know, you can go from one thing to the other like that. All right, Mark, I just honestly had one more for you about this game, and then I'll let you go. I know it's late out there on the East Coast. When you're looking at this Sounders Rapids game, based on how the Rapids have started the season, which is, you know, 1.5 whatever points per game, up in the top 5 of the West, but also a couple of negative results in there as well, right? May or may not have Zack Steffen, but you do have it at home against the Seattle team coming off a big win. What are you hoping to see from the Rapids, and what are your hopes and expectations for what they can get out of this game?
So Colorado, the last couple of games, has been scuffling, and it's hard to figure out if they have a true identity and if they've locked in on this new formation that they've done the last 2 games. So it's been loss. So looking backwards, it's draw, win, loss, win, loss. They looked utterly befuddled against Vancouver, who are a very good team this year, of course. But they also kind of bossed San Diego, who have been the darlings of the league to start.
San Diego smoked Seattle.
that game was really even. And San Diego is a phenomenally talented team with guys like Irving Lozano, Lofelson at fullback, who they poached from RSL, just some really neat players. And Colorado didn't, really were up on them and just tore them apart. No problem. And then they also looked terrible against Portland. That was the 3-0 game that the kid I was telling you about, Adam Beaudry, wasn't responsible for the goals, but Colorado just got torn limb from limb. They were never in control of that match. So, and then Houston's an okay team, and Colorado dropped that one at the death. So to draw 2-2. So it's been a kind of a tale of two teams. There's been a little bit of a lack of consistency. The back line, which we haven't talked about at all, has been a bit of a work in progress. There have been injuries. Sam Vines, who's the natural left back for the Rapids, started the season with, I think, a pulled hamstring. And so the Rapids were playing their right back, Keegan Rosenberry, at left back, and they were playing Reggie Cannon at right back. Now both of those guys are healthy, but Reggie Cannon's missed some games for injury. So, and Keegan Rosenberry is, I think he spent 3 seasons with the Rapids playing every single minute of every single game. And now he's been kind of relegated to the bench. That's an interesting transition also. Anyways, in the middle and on central defense, it's a new pairing for this season. Chidozie Awaziem, who comes over from FC Cincinnati. I think we've seen him be pretty good so far. But, remember at the beginning of last season, the Colorado Rapids had Moise Bombito, who is now the starting center back for OGC Nice in France and the starting center back for the Canadian national team. And last year was clipped as the fastest player in Major League Soccer as a center back. He had recovery speed on transition plays last year against opposing teams that were clipped and shown on all the socials by MLSsoccer.com nonstop, like on replay, because he was so phenomenal. So that was the guy that we had last year who was really helping the team to be phenomenal. The guy who steps in his place is not as good. And next to him is a guy named Andreas Maxo, who was a Rapids DP out of Brøndby in Denmark. And he's okay. I mean, I think he's basically a league average center back who the Rapids are paying DP money for. So that's not great, right? Like, so those are some of our little weaknesses and some of our little holes that I think Seattle can exploit if they want to. That was the thing that happened with Houston. They kind of pulled apart the back line on a couple different plays. So, a good attack and Seattle can get in there. I think Colorado has this one. The Rapids tend to do very well at home. They tend to grind for 65 minutes and then opposing teams get gassed and they nick a goal in the 75th. If they can get a goal earlier than that, they can even capitalize even more on that. So I think this one's going to be a 2-0 win for the Rapids. That's dangerous thing for a guy to say. I have been deeply personally burned by the Seattle Sounders on many occasions at DSGP. When we lived in Colorado, I took my wife to a game. We hired a babysitter when the kids were really little, and we went to a match, and Obafemi Martins received a ball on a 40-yard ping.
Oh my God. Yeah. That's one of the best goals in club history.
You know what I'm about to say.
Yeah.
Did a 3/4 spin around his defender, left him naked and fallen down, and then dribbled in on goal and put it away. It was the sickest. My wife, who is not a soccer fan, turned to me and her eyebrows went up like off the top of her head, like she had never seen anything like that. I mean, it was really, and if you're a Seattle Sounders fan, if you're OG Sounders, you know exactly the play I'm talking about. You can picture it in your mind's eye. We were there in the flesh, he was right in front of us when we made that 3/4 spin. And we were like, that is literally one of the 5 best plays I've ever seen in MLS history. And it was in front of me. It was awesome. So Seattle burns us on the regular. And I totally recognize that I might be eating these words, and that's okay. That's
that. that Oba goal is one of the best first touches you'll ever see, like world class. And you're right, it's one of the most legendary goals in,
Oh my
in club
God.
history. Even though it was a
I
random game
wonder.
against the Rapids, it was
Right,
that
that's
good.
the thing. I wonder how many of the listeners are like, "Oh yeah, that was against the Rapids," or "Oh yeah, that was in Colorado." Like, "Oh yeah, it was like it was a." It's kind of crazy that one of the most legendary goals in Seattle history, like, didn't happen in Seattle, and so a lot of the fans didn't see it. But you guys travel really well, and you know that. So.
Yeah, no, and I promise you, everyone in our chat remembers exactly what goal you're talking
Oh,
about,
for
because that
sure.
was like the
Respect.
quintessential Oba goal. Oh man, I when you name dropped Bombito, man, I forgot about him. That guy is incredible. Like, I loved watching him play in MLS. Like
Yeah.
you mentioned, the speed was just like the fastest CB I've ever seen, and he
Yeah.
fully deserved like
And
the move he got.
Nice isn't that great this year. They had a rough. I got to watch him play a couple games in the Europa League, and they got bounced from Europa like in 6 matches. They it was not great for them. But Bombi's really. I think we're all really excited for what he's going to do. Mostly Rapids fans are really excited about how much money we made off that sale. He
Yeah.
was sold for either 6 or 7 million, and 3 of it turned into GAM and TAM for the Rapids. And so that's been like, just absolute, huge money for the club. They could do whatever they want with. So good
Mark,
stuff.
that is all I had for you this evening.
A lot.
Thank you so much for joining the show, staying
Yeah.
up late out east. Before you go, please tell our audience what you're doing with Holding the High Line, where they can find your work, and like just the type of stuff you guys are doing covering the Colorado Rapids day in, day out.
Yeah, you can catch me on Blue Sky. My handle is at Rabbi Mark Asher G. We do a Substack, but everything on it is wide open. We don't put anything behind the paywall except a few old archive stuff. It's holdingthehighline.com. We have a podcast, same deal. You can get it on any of the podcast places. If you like to hear me and Matt spit and drop all the information. If you want to hear our preview of Seattle and have us talk incoherently and unintelligibly about your team, you can download that right now. You can also check out some of our old stuff on the Substack and the website, like I said, holdingthehighline.com. So you can catch all that. So thanks to your listeners and your YouTubers for tuning into this. I really appreciate it. And thanks for having me on, man. This was a lot of fun. We'll pimp your stuff out to our podcast next week when we get back on it. And I hope I see you in the playoffs.
Absolutely. Yeah. Appreciate the time, man. Keep going with Holding the High Line. Everyone, go check out Holding the High Line, their podcast and their Substack. They do great work covering the Rapids. Mark, we'll get you on again when the Rapids come to Seattle, and let's get Matt in here too and do the panel idea,
We'll lob some Scorchers at you next time, okay?
Thank you, man. Appreciate the time. Have a great rest of your night.
Thanks, man. You too.
That was Mark Asher Goodman, aka the Soccer Rabbi, stopping by to preview this weekend Sounders match at Colorado. Great insight there. A lot of great backstory on stuff that I didn't know, and I've been enjoying these Under the Lights Thursday night streams where I'm been talking to people who cover all the other teams, and really, like, I was already a sicko for this league, but the depth of my knowledge about all these teams that the Sounders are playing now, it's getting a little disturbing. All right. I had a few more things planned for you guys tonight. If you have any questions or topics you want me to hit, feel free to drop them in chat. I guess the first thing I was going to do is play some Brian Schmetzer sound, hear from Schmetz, and react to it. He had some things to say about this win at Nashville and how the squad is going to try and build on it. So let's I'm going to pull up the screen here and let's hear from Schmetz. And while we're listening to this, like I said, if you got any topics or questions, feel free to drop them in there.
With your not direct lineups, but you kind of intimated a little bit that like Musovski playing well, getting another start, obviously played well again. How do you kind of look at the balancing, getting your designated players back, but the other players filling in just as good?
It's my job to win games. It's the player's job to play to their potential and make those choices hard for me. It's just about as easy as that. So Musovski has made it challenging for me. The team has had 2 gritty, gutty performances, completely different from away at Dallas and home. And there will be some tough choices this week.
If Musovski was able against San Diego, do you think that outcome would have been different?
Well, it's hard to say, Jada. I mean, the team didn't play well. Maybe. That's hard to say.
When you look back at the game today, I mean, is there anything that stands out that you're particularly proud of that performance against Nashville?
Yeah, the effort that the guys put in. Their connection with the fans was good because of their effort. You kind of got momentum, the 3 goals in quick succession, because we didn't start off great. Talked about that. Was there some tactical things that we could have done better? Was it just the technical piece of, loose, giving balls away, loose touches? But once we got rolling, they were into it. And, there's a couple sequences where we didn't score, but guys were tackling and running and chasing and fighting. And, one of them ended with Obed's yellow card. But that sequence, I mean, you watch that sequence again, guys are putting it in. They're competing.
Brian.
That was not all of it, but that was the main thing I wanted to hit on with that Schmetz sound, which was a good first question by Jada Evans. Shout out Jada for hitting on what I think is like the most interesting thing to consider from a Seattle perspective for this game, which is it's kind of the age-old question of when you have a really good game like Seattle just had, a big win, and it's a situation where it came with a lineup that didn't have guys that are normally your regular starters, Albert Rusnak and Jordan Morris specifically, the 2 most statistically productive attackers on the team last year, weren't starting. So the question is like, do you ride the hot hand or do you work your starters back in now that they're more fit and ready to go, theoretically? So there's different schools of thought on that. But I'll tell you guys what I would do. I guess my take on it is that the team performed so well against Nashville, and you're really in a situation where Rusnak and Jordan Morris only got so much run. They only got 20, 30 minutes or whatever. I think Jordan went 30. So I don't think either of those players are necessarily 90 fit yet. What I would do is I would ride the hot hand to start the game, see if you can replicate that magic. You're in a good way right now. And I would let Moose go 60 and bring Jordan on right at 60, which I'm pretty sure, if I'm remembering correctly, that's what Schmetzer did against Nashville. I think I would do that. Again. And if it goes off the rails or it's like going really poorly, maybe you can make the changes sooner. But I think that's how I would play it. But I definitely see the counter argument. What do you guys think, Chad? What should they do? You ride the hot hand, or do you work Rusnak and Morris right back in the 11? It's a good problem to have, but I'm honestly curious to see what Schmetz does. I feel like I've gotten decently good at reading what he's going to do in situations like this, but I honestly don't know. But I do know that you could for sure rationalize giving Moose another run and giving Ferreira another run in that more central spot. And really, whatever happens this game, they're going to have to figure out the Ferreira Rusnak rotation, if that's a rotation, if they're going to keep trying to play those guys together at the same time. Noah and I have talked about that a lot. It seems like Noah's on the train that you should rotate them, mix and match them, because it hasn't looked super great when they've played together so far this season. I'm a little more of the mind that they really have not realistically had a lot of time to drill playing together. So while it hasn't necessarily looked that great to start, I don't think that means that it can't get there, and you're not going to be able to get it there unless you run it in games. So I think that depends on what they see in training, but Yeah. I don't know. He was amped to start Jordan 2 weeks ago. Clearly that would have been a bad idea. Yeah, like you don't want any I feel like you're in a situation where you don't need to press the issue with that. The team has looked really good with Moose. Moose is scoring goals. He's got 2 games in a row with a goal. And honestly, guys, I watched the one that got waved offside in FC Dallas, the second one that didn't count. Got a little tilted all over again. Feel like he wasn't offside. Moose should really have another goal. Ferreira when pressing, attacking, Rusnak when you're possessing. I like that take. Or just in general, like I can rock with the idea of mixing and matching them based on lineup like that. I don't want to just throw out. I think you have to at least try to have both those players playing together at the same time. I do. My blue white went off there. Damn it. But I see what you're saying, and like, I think if we're taking what you're proposing there, this would be a Rusnak game, because I think when you're on the road, you want to be more possession oriented than really like throwing numbers forward like you're the home team and potentially leaving yourself exposed. So I could see that, but we'll see what he does. We'll see what he does. What about rotating the squad is needed depending on the matchup? We seem to be getting everyone back and healthy now. And yeah, like I think at the end of the day, that's sort of what's going to make these decisions is, who's fit, what's the matchup. But it's still, it's fun to talk about because now you have a situation where at least at this juncture as it stands right now, the team is actually a little healthier and you can start making these decisions. I haven't even mentioned Ryan Kent yet. And Ryan Kent looked pretty good. I think we all want to see more of him. But that situation in particular, I don't think he's probably particularly close to 90 fit. But that's a heck of a super sub to have at your disposal for a game like this, especially because hopefully he's going to be even more integrated with the team now that he's got some game reps, some more training. So Moose DP escalators incoming. Hey, be careful what you predict because none of us knew about the JMO escalator. How sick would it be if Moose had DP escalators and then he hits them? I mean, I was thinking about this because on the post game live, someone called the Moose goal against Nashville lucky, which I thought that was just ridiculous off rip because that was one of the best pieces of skill I've seen from a Seattle player all season. Like that was like he absolutely was trying to do that. That is what he was trying to do with that little. He was trying to. He saw it was an incredible play. Honestly, he saw that the Ferreira shot coming in at pretty good pace. It wasn't like a laser shot, but for how close Ferreira was to him, it was coming in at pretty good pace. And he actually reacted quick enough with the back heel and got it on target. It was a great piece of skill, not luck at all. And you guys realize like what would happen if Emmanuel Latte-Loth scored a goal like that for Atlanta United? Everyone would be talking about that's what you pay $22 million for. He's a striker who can do stuff like that. Because it's Moose, no one gives a shit. You haven't seen a single pundit talk about that goal, which I get it. It's, they didn't spend $22 million on him. I'm just saying, like, that was a class goal. That was a class goal. Make your own luck and don't do that without talent. Yeah, lucky it worked, sure. But, like, couldn't you say that about, like, any goal if you really boil it down? Like, I don't know if that's more true of the Moose goal, but, like, your first point is dead on. Like, you don't get unless you have the audacity to try something like that. You'll never find out if it's going to work. And it was a great finish. Latte-Loth early bust. See, I feel like I don't know. Just by looking at the stat sheet, he's doing okay. Like I think he has 5 goals for them already. But it's sort of when I look at Atlanta, it's like. It feels like always dating back to the Boca days. And even now it's just like spending a ton of money on talented guys without regard for how you want to play or how they fit together. Atlanta United's tactics, I'm getting on a tangent, but it's under the lights. I can get on a tangent. Atlanta United's tactics right now, I was looking into it more because I was like, why are they so bad despite spending $30 million in transfers over the offseason? And they just got absolutely destroyed by the Philly Union in their last game. Their fan base is calling it the worst performance in club history. So that's where things are at. That's what they paid $30 million for. But apparently their whole game plan week to week is to give Brooks Lennon just as many goddamn touches as possible. The whole thing runs through Brooks Lennon on a team where you've got Miguel Almiron and Latte Loth for a combined $30 million. Brooks Lennon, apparently, based on what I read on Five Stripe Final, which is a great Atlanta United Substack, apparently he regularly leads the touches and the team in touches every week. And basically what they do is they just bomb him down the right and have him cross it. And he went 1 for 10 on crosses last week. 1 for 10. And I think just in general, like, you don't want your right back to be your sole game plan attacking focal point. But Brooks Lennon in particular has been a good productive player in the league, but a club like Atlanta United, I don't know if they should be running the whole thing through him. But how does that's my question. How does that happen? How do you get to a place where you're dropping $30 million of Arthur Blank money and you're still spamming Brooks Lennon and you're off to the worst start in club history? It's kind of crazy, man. It's kind of crazy. I was saying during the offseason that I was really high on their offseason and I expected them to be back this year. And instead they're off to the worst start in club history. So go figure. I know I make this point every week, but it just shows me, man, it just shows you can drop all the bags that you want. But if your organization isn't on solid ground, if your team building philosophy isn't sound, if your youth development isn't there, you can't latte loth your way out of that. You would need the salary cap capability to buy 8 of them to get out of it if you don't have all the other infrastructure in place, right? So it's tough scenes for them right now. It's tough scenes for them. I know Seattle had a rough start to the year, but at least they look like they're kind of putting it together a little bit. Atlanta United really don't. Martinez and Almiron were the excitement with a decent back line, but now there's no back line. Maybe it was McCarty holding them together. Well, Dax only joined last year when they were still bad. But I mean, I think you're right that what happened was they hit the lotto their first 2 years in the league with Joseph Martinez basically putting up like Ronaldo numbers in MLS every year. And Almiron was one of the best players in the league at that time. And they just lit up the league. And then you had guys like, Parkhurst and Lorenowitz. That's like those type of like MLS signings. Those matter too. And they hit on those in the early days. And now they just didn't. Schmetz could fix Atlanta. It's weird though. It seems like no matter what they do, it doesn't work. Remember they hired Gabriel Heinze, which famously did not work out. He was brought in as this big name from Argentina, I believe, and ended up just being hella toxic. Like, remember it came out that he was like making the players train super hard, and then when they were like, "I need water," he was like, "No, you can't have water." He was like dehydrating them, and he got fired. Gonzo Pineda came in with the most pedigree of any assistant in MLS. We all thought that hire was a hit. He was the most highly sought after assistant coach in the league for a head coaching job at that time. I feel like the process with that hire, even if it didn't work out, makes sense. And it's like, well, why didn't it work out? We're looking at it now, and it's gotten even worse since he left. How much of that was Gonzo Pineda's fault? And how much of it is there something just like actually dysfunctional, deeply dysfunctional within their organization? But I don't know what it is. Like, why? You have the nicest facilities. You have Arthur Blank, who Arthur Blank doesn't give a shit. They go to Chris Henderson and Garth go to Arthur Blank and they're like, we need this much money for this guy. And Arthur Blank it's not like a Hanauer situation, we all love the Moneyball. Arthur Blank just says, yeah, I don't care. I'm Arthur Blank. I got more money than I can ever know what to do with. What do I give a shit about $22 million? Go get him. That's his approach to ownership. It's phenomenal. He should be getting way more return than he's getting from the people who are running the club based on the support he's given them with the facilities and the transfer fees and all that. Bro, I swear if you gave me as much money as that, I could build at least a top 5 team in the East. Kind of joking, but it is crazy. Guzan is done. Maybe, but I feel like there's more to it than just like kind of subpar goalkeeping. Seems deeper than that. Do the ends justify the means? Royce is the first name that comes to mind. He has been bad, but Galaxy won MLS Cup after adding him. Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about the Galaxy specifically, I've been saying during this whole horrendous start for them that the ends do justify the means, and you trade a season like this for that trophy 7 days a week, twice on Sunday, like no question in my mind. Same calculation that I made for Seattle going all in on Champions League in 2022. And I still think that's true. I think you take missing the playoffs if it means winning Champions League. I will say the Galaxy are kind of pushing that to its absolute limit right now. They're not just having a down year. They're not just taking a step back from where they were. They're like the worst, if they're one of the worst, if not the worst teams in the league through 10 matches, which is unexpected. And it makes me question more than I would have thought. Like, man, they had a phenomenal team last year. Noah and I had the whole bit about how we're an LA Galaxy podcast because of how much we loved watching Ricky Puig, Joey Paints, Gabriel Peck, and the boys. That was one of the sickest MLS attacks of the last few years. But you look at how it's devolved this year. I get that they had to kind of blow their whole team up. They had to ship Mark Delgado, who is honestly a key part of their team, to LAFC, which is tough. Gaston Brugman, who was a really good player for them, who got benched in the Sounders game, but they had to move him to Nashville SC. There's like 5 other, Jalen Neal, their highest upside young defender, had to trade him. There's a lot of other moves. So I get it. I get why a step back would happen, but the worst team in the league, like really? Like it's one thing to be mid or not good, but to take that far a step back, I don't see how that happens. It's like Lagerwey got overwhelmed when he actually got the money to buy Peeps. Yeah, man. I just don't. The thing that doesn't make sense about it is that we all know as much as anyone how effective the duo, the Garth Lagerwey and Chris Henderson duo, was at building MLS clubs here. They built a team that won damn Champions League. And really, one of the reasons that Seattle is considered one of the most stable organizations is because of them. So how does it make any sense at all that you put them at a club that they have a blank check? They can spend whatever they want on whoever they want. And then you put it out on the field to start the year and it looks like, I don't get it. I don't get it. I can't explain it. I fell for it. I fall for it every year with Atlanta because truth be told, I get a lot of like schadenfreude out of their struggling. I think it's pretty funny, but every year I go into it prepared to be like, all right, they're going to be good again. They spent this much money. They got this guy, and this guy. I see no way that doesn't. And then every year they do this, except this year it's even worse. My friend said it's Brugman, Puig, and Jovic holding them together. Yeah, I didn't even mention Jovic, but that's another one that hurts, man. I get it. But like, honestly, like just go look at the Galaxy roster. I would not peg it as that bad. I would not peg it as that bad. Academy saved Seattle in CCL. Vargas for JP. It did. I mean, I think there's like there's something to that. Vargas, Jackson Reagan honestly played a huge role in that tournament. That was his rookie year, and he was starting all those games. But that's kind of what I was getting at earlier is like, to be a truly elite team, like you need all of that infrastructure. And I think including at this point, I include youth development in that. Some clubs are further along with it than others. Obviously, Seattle is one of the clubs that's further along. And they definitely, you can't deny that they've benefited from that a lot. And I think that is honestly probably one of the biggest reasons why they can not spend necessarily like in Atlanta and still be a good team year in and year out. And actually, you know what? That's a good segue to the next topic that I wanted to hit, which what I was going to do is play some Chris Armas sound, head coach, Colorado Rapids. He was doing his media availability down in Commerce City, Colorado this week, talking about this game. And I want you guys to listen to how he talks about Seattle, because I think sometimes, we're all in it every day. We follow it every day. We're the obsessive inside perspective of it. And we kind of don't always pay attention to what people on the outside have to say about it. And I wanted to play this Armas sound because he talks about it in a way that this is what most people talk about when the Seattle Sounders come up. So I'm going to pull this up. I want you guys to listen to this. This is Colorado Rapids head coach Chris Armas talking about this upcoming game with the Seattle Sounders. Thought this was interesting.
Yeah, we're really excited for this next one. We love all the games, but back at home against a really good Seattle team. They're hot. They're coming in with a good decisive victory against Nashville, and we love the idea of just getting back out there. Big test for us. These types of games kind of let you know where you're at, especially at home when we think we can push the tempo and things. But we'll have a big test on our hands. We're excited for it, and again to get back home and challenge ourselves with probably how good we can be at being us, our consistency, our DNA, our style of play against a good opponent.
You just spoke on it. It's going to be a very interesting match. I'm not sure everyone's a tight ship. How do you expect that playing out tactically?
Listen, it's to understand Seattle. I think you really have to know that they're just solid. They can attack, they can break you down in the build, they can hurt you in transition. The guys got like Jordan Morris coming back from injury, but obviously Ferreira and Rosner, they have so many weapons up the pitch. But they're also really strong defensively. They're organized. It looks like they're playing the three in the back these days, so they're very aggressive with the wing backs to jump and put you under pressure. And then I think they are a benchmark in this league for winning and what winning looks like, and they've created a beautiful culture over there of winning, and I'm envious of it. We're striving to do that here in many ways. So I love that this challenge is one against a team that I think has so many good things going, and we have a lot of respect for them.
And like you mentioned, we're going to be back at home this weekend. The last two.
That was the main part that I wanted to play there. Thought that was interesting. Called it a like a measuring stick, a benchmark to like see where they're at. And he said, he was envious. He said the culture he is trying to instill at the Rapids, they're trying to replicate what Seattle has in terms of what I think is the most really the most important thing at the end of the day when you talk about these things, which is, obviously the scouting, the talent acquisition, and salary cap, how you manage it, all that stuff, youth development. But the winning culture is what Chris Armas was talking about right there. And I think it's a reminder, at least, that, we've all been in it all season, but like that's sort of the reputation that Seattle has rightfully cultivated. If you listen to anyone from the outside who objectively analyzes this league, like Chris Armas does, they'll tell you that same thing, like about winning culture. And that's really like, that's the essence to me of how you get that foundation of consistency. A winning club, like not just for a year here or there, but like year in, year out. So thought that was some interesting sound, because like I said, we all see it every day. We all get frustrated when you have a new player come in, maybe he doesn't fit in right away. But at the end of the day, man, if you've got that winning culture that he's talking about, and you really cultivate that, that's really what gets results, and that's what wins trophies. It's not what Atlanta is doing with, like, which we were talking about, which is spending money seemingly without regard for all those other things. It is exactly what Chris Armas points out as to why our power rankings stick near the top of the table regardless of our sour starts. Exactly. It's because everyone knows what's up. Everyone knows what's up. You might have poor runs of form here and there, but realistically, like, you're never going to be a team that only ever dominates, only ever has good runs of form. It's about like who are you actually as a team and as an organization. And I remember Doyle was talking about this the year that Seattle won CCL. And the example that he brought up was when Rui Diaz scored the goal in that final game against Pumas. The first thing he did, remember this? First thing he did was he ran over to the academy kids who were like down on the they were seated like in those rows like right on top of the field. He ran over there and they were all celebrating with him. And at that point, it was this like such a great moment because you could it was the first goal actually of the game, I'm pretty sure. And that breakthrough, it released so much tension in the stadium of like, all right, like this is real. Like Seattle might actually be about to win Champions League right now. This is happening. And the first thing Rui Diaz does in that moment, which is such a credit to him, by the way, first thing Rui Diaz does in that moment is he goes and runs over and celebrates with the academy kids who he took on a great mantle of mentoring at training every day. Rui Diaz, man, if you ever watched him at training, which I did a lot, he would always stay after and work on, at the time it was like Ocampo Chavez and whatever young forwards players that they would bring to training. He would always mentor them. He always had time for that. That's winning culture. That's winning culture. It's not necessarily spending $22 million on Latte Loth. And that's the example that Doyle brought up. But I think everything that Chris Armas is talking about right there is that's a common sentiment from how Seattle is regarded around the league. He said he was envious, guys. He said he's envious. That's kind of cool to be the envy of somebody. That's sick. Rui Diaz is a Sounders GOAT. He's a Sounders GOAT for like those reasons that I was talking about, as much as the goal scoring. And like I would throw Ladero in there too. It's like it's standard setters. That's what you need. I think if there's one question maybe about Seattle's roster right now is it's like, have they truly filled the void of those standard setters? I'll never forget the night before the CCL final. We were out at the media mixer. That was actually that was the first night I ever met Noah, but I'll never forget. We were talking with someone from the Sounders and we were like, do you what are you thinking for tomorrow? Do you think you guys are going to win this, or like, are you worried? And he was like, I'm not worried at all. We're going to win. I'm like, why are you so confident? Said, El Capitan's not going to let us lose. He's just not. That's what we're talking about with, that's what I'm talking about with standard setters. Ladero, he set that every single day. He and Rui Diaz both. I think that there's guys who are starting to take up that mantle as we get further away from the Ladero and Rui Diaz era. Christian is a name that I would bring up in there. Stefan Frei, I think, is a guy that I would bring up in there. But I do think there's an argument to be made that, like, in terms of those standards and that leadership, I would say it's arguably unclear right now to what effect that they filled that void. Cause like realistically, that is a void that they had to fill. And, you know, maybe to an extent, that's part of why Seattle started the season a little slowly here. Cause, it can take a while to fill that void. Although I don't know, maybe I'm making too much of that because, you know, they didn't have Ladero last year. Rui Diaz was on the back end of his best MLS days, and they won 16 games and made the West Final. So I don't know if it's like that much an issue, but it's like, it's just stuff like that is people maybe don't always talk about in terms of team building. But that's how you win. That's how you stack trophies. What did I think he's talking about Mark. What did he call you when he was recalling the Martin's goal? Did he call you Z? Not sure, Tiago. I'll have to go back and look at that. I didn't catch that. All right. All right, let's do some Stefan Frei sound. Stefan Frei also talked. Always like to hear from him. Actually, I got something for you guys. This was funny. All right. So I was listening to Soccerwise this morning. Shout out Tom Bogert. Shout out David Goss. And they were talking about this Portuguese club, Boa Vista, who they've created an innovative strategy on the global transfer market that I didn't know was an option. But apparently this club just doesn't pay their transfer fees. They just don't pay. They say, we're going to buy that player from you. Here's the paperwork. We'll take them for this amount of money. And then they just don't pay it. They've done it like 4 times. And this is a club that's churned out a lot of players that have gone to MLS. This is a club that Albert Elise played for, that Reggie Cannon played for. And what's happening right now, which is a kind of funny story in MLS, is Real Salt Lake bought a striker from them, from Boa Vista. And they're like doing all this weird, shady business stuff where the dude is literally in Salt Lake and they're trying to hold up the deal. I think that as far as I know right now, the deal is like still not going through because they're trying to say like they need to be paid in Portuguese money or not US. Anyway, I'm going to play this clip from Soccerwise because the way that Tom explains the situation is better than I'm doing, and it's absolutely hilarious, and it's just a funny story from the world of global soccer and MLS. So I'm just going to play this and then we'll react to it.
All right, Tom, I need you to get out financial details. We need to get currency exchange numbers produced. We need to talk international law and sporting law. Let's break down what's going on for RSL right now in their quest to find their DP number 9.
Real Salt Lake are at the final stage of signing DP center forward Robert Boznick from Boa Vista. Boznick is in Utah right now, Tuesday, doing a medical. He traveled. As I was kind of saying on the show in recent weeks, this deal has, for the most part, been agreed for a number of weeks. But the disarray that Boa Vista are constantly in means it's never, ever simple. It's been a situation of, I mean, I'm trying to be where I can be specific and where I have to be vague so I don't get caught saying something that I don't know this finance world. I don't understand why they're still allowed to make transfers when they don't pay anybody. And all the details of this is going on. So Boznick pushed for this. He was like, I'm traveling, I'm doing the medical, we're doing this. Like this is a deal, all this, right? The deal is for $2 million. What I was told, $2 million US. Bozanic gets here, and now Bo Vista are saying, well, actually, we actually thought that it was 2 million euros, right? Because that's like 2.3 million US right now. Despite the fact that everything was being negotiated in US dollars, and just somebody maybe did a quick Google search of, the translate, like
how to make more money in 10 seconds.
And we need to talk about what this means for RSL, right? Like
we need RSL to create a cryptocurrency that they're able to do this in for Boa Vista immediately.
My favorite detail is 5 years ago, Boa Vista bought Reggie Cannon from FC Dallas. They have not paid a single penny. They were taken to court 2 or 3 years ago by Dallas. And
by Reggie, right?
Reggie took them to court and lost on a technicality, which I feel bad for the player. Like, they didn't pay him any wages, but he filed the lawsuit a couple of days, something stupid where they gave him like, $10 and be like, look, we're on our way to paying your wages, whatever it was. Even that is besides the point, which is as funny as it sounds. Dallas requested, hey, can RSL just directly pay us the fee that they're going to pay Boa Vista? And Boa Vista were obviously like, no, because apparently they have zero intention of paying anybody. After
Boa Vista feels very strongly that you should pay for what you receive. RSL has to pay Boa Vista. It's the only proper thing to do.
As I'm reporting this, they signed Bozanic from Feyenoord. I get a text from Feyenoord asking about this deal because, hey, they haven't paid us a penny for Bozanic that they signed from us on loan 3 years ago, and 2 years ago as a purchase option. They don't pay anybody. And now they're haggling over, well, actually, it's in euros and not in dollars. And the dude's doing a medical. He's probably wearing a Real Salt Lake shirt right now. What I was told from RSL is they hope to just complete everything today. And hopefully that they'll get off this stupid euros versus dollars thing. I don't know, man. It's a mess. I don't understand how they're allowed to be run. Somebody sent me, I thought somebody was making a joke that they didn't pay their electric bill. There's a report in Portugal that they didn't pay their electric bill at the training facility. And they're not training at the training facility because they can't turn the lights on. And then somebody else made it, texted me, Joe was like, yeah, only cold water for the showers. I have no idea if that's a joke or if that's serious.
I don't know it's true anymore.
It's just like, dude, man.
How good is that? I respect the strategy. Just don't pay. I never thought of that. Just don't pay. Yeah, we'll give you. Oh yeah, that too. That couple. We're good for that. Just don't pay. It's genius. Heard Boa Vista is going to be sponsored by Enron and FTX next season. Fire Festival kit sponsor. Chat's on fire right now. Oh my god! I wanted to play that for you guys just because Tom's recounting of it is hilarious. Well, because imagine being him. You get into tech. You're covering this saga of how they won't pay, and then you get a text from another team that's like, yeah, they didn't pay us 5 years. They just don't pay. How is that? How is that possible? I feel like there should be a rule against that. If you don't pay your transfer fee, you can't use the player. Or frankly, you can't play your games. What the hell, man? Reggie Cannon, that was literally 4 or 5 years ago. They still haven't paid that. Still haven't paid. Can we try to get that fourth EP? Can't be above the cap if he's not getting any money. Exactly. You saying Reggie Cannon never got paid wages, and then they did some loophole to win the lawsuit of giving him $10. That shit is so cynical, man. That's a pyramid scheme. That club is a pyramid scheme. RSL is struggling to buy a striker. Poor RSL. Dude, they they got announced they traded for Willie Agata today. And maybe that, I didn't even think of this, but maybe that's a sign that the Bosnick deal actually fell through. He literally flew to Utah. Might actually never suit up for them. I don't know. It's crazy. The reason I bring it up is because it's funny, but I think the Seattle Sounders should, and really all MLS clubs should consider adopting this strategy. Should consider adopting the strategy. Just don't pay. Just don't say you're going to pay and then just don't pay. That rips. Guys, how did we never think of this? Confirmed off per Bogert. I didn't know that. Confirmed off. Oh my God. That's tough. I honestly, it's funny, but I feel bad for that guy. Imagine like being all excited to get to your new club. You literally fly. Oh yeah, it's a done deal. I'm doing my medicals. Nah, brother. Get back to Portugal where you're going to play for no money. They aren't paying that. They aren't paying that guy. Speaking of cap, are we paying Paul Arriola's wages for Ryan Kent or just Paul's Sounders cap hit? It's a good question. I actually am not sure how that works. Like if he's being on season-ending injury. Oh, I think there's. I'm not. Don't quote any of this, but I think there's something where with Arriola, the reason they were able to get Ryan Kent, part of it was I think because when you're on the season injury list, it like gives you a certain amount that you can spend or something. I don't know. I am totally freestyling there. No Bosnick to RSL. Who is your favorite Sounders player? Are we talking right now or all time? All time. I'm an Ozzy Alonso guy. I am. There's a lot of different ways you could go with that question. Ozzy was the best. God, that guy ruled. Such a sick player. Right now, who's my favorite Sounder right now? It's a tie between Albert Rusnak and Danny Musovski. JP is up there. I might say that's tough. I'm kind of struggling with this. Maybe Obed, man. Especially after that last game. I got to look at the list. Having trouble like coming up with candidates off the top for some reason. Chat, who's your favorite Sounders? Who's your favorite Sounders, all time or current? I think I'm going Obed. He's so good, man. The price went up. I really like dirty work players. That's kind of why Ozzy is my pick for all-time favorite. I like the guys that are the unsung heroes. That's just me, though. Obed 20 Kajil or hang up the phone. Exactly. That move that I mean, I watched the Nashville highlights a lot of times now. He mossed that guy. That was sad. The little acceleration. It's a little acceleration. Such a good assist. Balling out of his mind. And he's so like versatile, multifaceted. Might have a weird one, but in terms of story generating player, I think Thomas Andy T has shot up my list of favorites. It's honestly a good shout. Like stuff like what he did in the Open Cup last year, talking trash to the Quakes after winning the penalty shootout. Andy T, that swagger that I was talking to Mark Asher Goodman about. Andy T, I think, low key as a goalkeeper kind of brings that. Always made an argument that Frei is the greatest of all time. Most would say Nico, though. What do you think? I think it's kind of like you kind of have to separate goalkeeper from field player. It's like such a different criteria that they're judged under. So I think it's almost like Frei is in a separate category. I think the better question with Frei, because he's obviously the best Sounders goalkeeper of all time. I mean, Casey Keller might have been the more accomplished player during his playing career as far as the clubs he played for and stuff like that. But there's no goalkeeper in MLS history that can mess with Frei's trophy case. There's just not. And he's been an MLS Cup MVP, and he's won Champions League as a CCL Best 11 keeper. So Frei's in like his own category as great Sounders GOAT goalie, but also like with Frei, you got to start talking about and we have talked about on our show, like where he ranks all time in MLS. I really think, man, like, you know, you can judge it by like raw skill or by winning. And I think when you look at the amount that Frei has won, it's like him or Nick Rimando. And if you argue Rimando, like we were talking about this on the show like a year ago, and we were saying that we think Frei is the MLS GOAT over Rimando. But it like anyone who argued Rimando, I'm not gonna like say that that's a bad take. But doesn't the trophy case have to play into that at a certain, like Rimando might have been the better pure goalkeeper in terms of like the saves he could make, making highlight reel saves, stopping penalties. If you were to say Rimando is like a superior player on all that stuff, I tend to think that that's honestly more of a wash. I think Frei is a great technical goalkeeper. But if you were to take Rimando, I wouldn't like argue with you. But Rimando never won Champions League. So Oba is a great shout. That's one that a lot of people would have. We got a new who shout. Chad Marshall, I was talking about him, I think last week, but that's an underratedly. I would put him up with Ozzy for me, at least in my top 2 or 3, because of just how it was like watching a flawless CB. It was crazy. We need the next Ozzy. Exactly, man. I've been saying it. It doesn't have to be like a carbon copy, but like someone in that mold with that attitude, that bite, that nastiness, that swagger. I'm hoping that that Ryan Kent has some of that. If Obed and Christian play like that every week, no one can stop us. Yeah. When you're beasting a game in midfield like that, it's tough to stop. Gustav Svensson, I love that shout. Is Frei leaving this year? I mean, I don't know. Right now, to me, he looks like he could play like another 5 years. People always talk about like the drop off of Frei. They always have like all these stats. See, like he let this goal in when it should have been. I don't really care about that. I'll take Frei in any big game between the posts over just about anybody. Even he just turned 39. I don't think I would take anyone else in there for if I need to win one game. I don't think I would take anyone else in MLS in there. Rimando has always been such a big player in my heart growing up in MLS. Every time we scored against him, it felt like all the much better knowing who he is. He was phenomenal. Like his status as the perceived, unquestioned MLS GOAT goalkeeper is fully earned. Like there is no question about that. It's fully earned. And I think the thing about Rimando, it wasn't just the crazy saves he would make. He was very much like Frei, a rise to the occasion type player. He would do it when it mattered the most. And he was just so consistent. And I think he probably, the reason Ramondo stands out so much to so many people is because he would make those like highlight reel saves, which Frei has a lot of too. But like if you made like an and one mixtape of Ramondo saves, it would probably be as crazy as any goalkeeper you're ever going to see. I learned tonight that Seattle's not it sounds like they're not going to have to play Zack Steffen on Saturday, which that was a whole thing going into this Rapids game that was like, all right, well, you are playing the hottest goalkeeper in the league right now on the road. Mark and I were talking about it, but really the reason that the Rapids are top 5 in the West right now is because of Zack Steffen. If you look at their underlying numbers, how they formed, they would not have nearly taken the amount of points that they have, honestly, if Zack Steffen wasn't just going crazy. And when Doyle stumped for him for MVP, is low key, like not a bad take. Do you know why Georgie is demoted to Defiance? Not for sure, but I feel like, well, number one, I think the realistic, the truth of the matter is that Ryan Kent being in the mix eats into Georgie's role on the first team, really through no fault of Georgie. He's been playing well this year. He has a couple assists. He's looked dangerous. I think it's clear that he still is a work in progress as far as like consistently bringing those moments that we see in him when we're like, wow, that was awesome. But Ryan Kent's a lot more polished, got a lot more pedigree. He's probably going to be getting those minutes. So that's one thing. But also you have this Defiance Open Cup match against the Timbies coming up. And Georgie is one of the players that's like eligible to get loaned down. I guess you can like do that with him. So I think they probably are planning on using him in that game. And I think that may be part of the reason why he was playing in this game with Defiance tonight was to get him back getting reps with those guys looking ahead to that game. I don't know. I'm just theorizing. But someone mentioned earlier that RBW, Trevion Sosa, and Georgie were all playing for Defiance tonight, and they absolutely slammed Sporting Kansas City 4-1. Georgie had 2 assists. So I don't know how much of a difference that's going to make against the Timbies, but I think if you have Andy T out there, RBW, Sosa, and Georgie, you have guys that are MLS level players, theoretically, right? And that have played with Defiance a lot. They've all like played on that team. So he played 90 in Kansas, bossed KC2 today. Yeah. Joel, he'll keep getting his minutes. Honestly, finding a way to guarantee Georgie minutes every chance week in, week out feels like his biggest need. Those talents are immense and only polishable with time. It's tough because that is true. But at the same time, like, how much is his development really progressing if he's just playing in a league that he's way too good for every week and he's just slamming MLS Next Pro competition? Maybe that helps your development, but I feel like the key is that he needs to be getting the competition against MLS level competition. But if it's a situation where there's just not enough minutes for to go around for both him and Ryan Kent, I mean, these things are fleshed out on the training ground, right? Whoever wins those internal competitions, that's who's going to play. Schmetz runs a pretty merit-based system. I feel like some people might think he plays favorites, but like if he really thought that playing Georgie instead of Ryan Kent in those moments would help the Sounders win games, I don't think that he wouldn't do that. Ooh, here's a good shout. Do we still regret letting Slam and Sam walk? Always thought he wasn't a good fit and it was a bad narrative just because he had a breakout year after he left. That whole thing kind of, I'm going to look it up right now. That was a hot storyline for a minute last year because the Sounders did let him go. And then he ended up balling for St. Louis City. But then he actually really fell out of favor there. They benched him. They weren't playing him at all. he got traded to the Philly Union, and the Philly Union transferred him, I believe. He went to the Philly Union, and he had 1 assist in 130 minutes. Didn't really get on the field. And 2023 was the breakout. He had 8 MLS goals in 950 minutes. That's excellent production for what St. Louis gave up for him. And frankly, they could use him. They could use that now. They have one of the worst offenses in the league right now. So, I mean, if they had a striker that could produce like that, it might be a little better off. But then last year, before he went to Philly, he had 2 goals, 1 assist in 588 minutes, which is fine, but not amazing. Didn't really break in at Philly. And now he's on Lask in Austria. He's toiling in Austria. Doesn't look like he has any goals yet for them. Although I was looking at Wikipedia. I'm going to look at Transfermarkt. Yeah, he's not really doing much in Austria. I think the Sounders actually ended up like winning that trade. I can't remember what they gave up, but the whole like Noah and I would joke a lot about it at the time. We would be tracking it every time he would ban for St. Louis, which he did 8 times. We'd be like, "Oh, why didn't they keep Slamming Sam? Why didn't they keep him? They need this guy. They need a number 9 like this. Rui Diaz isn't scoring." This was before they discovered that Jordan as the number 9 worked fine, and he put up 14 and 5 playing that position. We were campaigning for Slamming Sam. That's how tough the start of last season was. We were adamantly pining for Slamming Sam and criticizing the club for trading him. But that's why you kind of got to give it time before you judge that stuff. Gonna have the same situation as Adeniran with Osaze, I feel. Yeah, honestly, I think that kid is clearly too good for Next Pro. I kind of observed that just from being at the Defiance game the other day. Well, like he was literally he was playing in the Canadian Prem before he went to Defiance and banging in goals, which the Canadian Prem's obviously not like the best league in the world, but it's not bad. Like for him to be one of the leading goal scorers over there, that's not nothing. And when Defiance were playing the Roots, just from watching the De Rosario, I was like, he's more like he looks like he is not only hanging with these USL guys, which that was sort of the measuring stick. He looks like he's not only hanging with them, but he is he's kind of cooking. He is excelling against these guys. So I think his level is very clearly higher than Next Pro. I don't know if it's MLS level. I think it's at least USL level. So we'll see. But no, he's got some game. Yeah, he really does. Like it wasn't just the extra time game winner, stepping up in the big moment. He put one off the post like 3 minutes into the game. And honestly, that like set the tone. Just being there, that was the moment where like the crowd was like, okay, it's on. It's on. These USL guys are not going to come in here and just take this game. Like this is going to be a game. I agree. He needs to make a move if he wants to continue to like what's the ceiling of what he can get at this point from playing in Next Pro? Maybe the next step for him is USL, because I feel like his resume and pedigree is not necessarily at a place yet where an MLS squad is going to be inclined to bring him in and give him the minutes that he would need to develop. But I could see a USL club doing that, and I think he could do well there. But I had the same thought, Reese. How much is Next Pro really getting him to the next level? Probably not that much. And his dad's one of the best MLS players ever, right? So, yeah, 2 first half goals tonight. He's just feasting. He's feasting. Noah was at one point campaigning for him to go to the first team, I think, when he was especially disgruntled. I could be misremembering that. Does he bail if we buy a U22 striker? I don't even think it's connected to that. I think realistically with the season he's having in next pro, he's going to be looking to move somewhere either way, whatever happens with it. I don't really get the sense, I don't know this, I'm just speculating, but I don't really get the sense that the organization at this point views him as like this is a potential long-term answer at this position, either as a depth piece or a potential starter. I think when you're filling out a next pro roster, you're balancing getting a ton of competitive minutes for your academy kids and developmental players with building a team that is trying to be competitive and win games. And so you kind of need both things. Like if it's all your freaking like U16s, that might be a little harder when you're playing these other sides that have these guys who are a little more seasoned. So I think you want both presences ideally when you're constructing a next pro roster. So the idea with him is more provide that type of presence with the thought, I would imagine that, all right, if we really like what we see from him, we'll give him like a chance. Like if we really like what we see from him and we think it could translate, we'll consider giving him a shot. But like to answer the original question, like I don't think it's going to have that, he'll have any bearing on the U22 spot one way or the other. And that's an exciting little thing on the horizon. Who are they going to go get with that? I think Tim Foss was doing transfer targets for Sounder at Heart. I don't know if that's out yet. I might have spilled the beans there. I haven't looked around at like who might be available, but Craig Wybes did say that whoever it is, they want it to be like a Jovic type situation where they can come in and contribute off rip. They don't want it to be like a developmental spot of like, okay, you'll be ready in like a year or two. Like Craig said that they want whoever it is to be able to contribute now, which would honestly be such a necessary addition to this team. I think even with Moose playing a lot better and starting to score goals, that's great. And that looks like right now, I mean, we'll see how it pans out. Like maybe this is just like a flash in the pan hot streak, but assuming that Moose is a viable depth striker, that works for this year, maybe next year, but like realistically long term, especially with Jordan getting up into his 30s, like these are things you got to think about. I was talking to Nico about that the other day. Like you got to make some of these moves with an eye towards the future. Next pro still just feels like college ball. I get like almost indoor vibes at times from it. It's just like such a frantic, fast-paced style, back and forth the whole time, especially at Starfire. But really, like if you watch any of the games, it's just like it's like cracked out, which is fun. Benjamin Sesko. All right. Yeah. I like, if you got names that you know about, go ahead and drop them in. I'll look them up. Moose is hitting it. This is a good bit with the Moose DP escalators. You're actually onto something with this. Summer window is about MLS playoffs. Window closes after Club World Cup. That's a good reminder of one of the, I'm at 2 hours, but I'm honestly, I'm good to keep hanging around for a little bit because I had one more thing I wanted to get to. Take this question first. Will the Sounders ever have a player like Christian or Jordan develop and stay again? I feel like a player like them would be headed abroad if they came up today. Well, even back then, do you remember how controversial it was that Jordan chose to stay here instead of signing with Werder Bremen? That was the genesis of why USMNT fans don't like me, is because they had the most brain dead takes of all time about how Jordan was like less of a man for not going to Germany. He wanted to stay in Seattle and play for the club he grew up watching and rooting for and dreaming about playing for. He wanted to play for that club instead of a mid-table Bundesliga side. What does this guy think he's doing? What a loser. These takes were flying around everywhere. And I always called it out. I defended him. And one time I defended him in a way that was I probably came in too hot. I will admit that. But a couple of the national pundits who cover the USMNT came after me. They came after me. They replied to my tweet. They replied to my tweet knowing that their fan base is the bot accounts with Pulisic avatars who are abusive to everyone that they talk to. They know what they're doing when they know that their fan base is the Hornets' nest, and they sicked it on me. And it wasn't a fun day for your boy on the internet. I was the main character of USMNT Twitter that day. And I don't regret it. I don't regret it because even if I acknowledge that I could have come in less hot, I was right. I was right. My take was about his USMNT stock, which everyone was hating on at the time, but it's all related to this decision he made to go stay home and play for Seattle instead of going to the Bundesliga. USMNT fans had this take that it would like hinder his development and he would never be good enough for the USMNT. You know what's funny about that? I hope some of them are watching right now. He's literally better than most of the strikers that our trash ass team has thrown out there in the last 8 years. And I don't just mean that at the club level. I mean that literally like at the international level. He has 11 goals and 55 caps, which is not amazing. That's more goals than freaking, who are these guys? Haji Wright. That's more goals than Haji Wright, who the bots love. He's got more goals than you know who the guys with the most like best goals and assists per 90 are? Jordan Morris and Jesus Ferreira. That's literally who it is. No one will ever none of those pundits who came after me that day, they'll never admit that. It's literally just the truth statistically. And I don't even bring that up to be like Jordan is the greatest US striker ever. Everyone else didn't outperform him. They didn't. Name me one number 9 that the US has trotted out there in the last 5 years that's meaningfully outperformed Jesus Ferreira and Jordan Morris. Name one. I don't think anyone could, which is funny. He might have been better if he had went to Germany. But my thing is like, there's no way to know that. People state that like a fact when you don't know. And the whole idea that MLS players are kneecapped by playing for the national team by playing in MLS has not necessarily been proven by history. If your form in MLS is good, you can get called into the US and contribute. I think that's clear, and I think he did do that. But the other thing is that the whole idea when he stayed here originally was he was going to do however long he wanted in Seattle for the first 2-3 years of his career, whatever it was. And then at that point, if he felt like it's something that he wanted to do, then he was gonna go to Europe. That was why the whole debate was so stupid, is because him staying and not going to Werder Bremen at the end of his career or at the beginning of his career did not preclude him from going to Europe someday. I think the idea was always, if he tears it up in MLS or it becomes a thing where he wants to challenge himself at a higher level, he was going to go do that. And you know what? He did do that. He got loaned to Swansea City in the English Championship. And it's unfortunate because that was going to be that was going to be like a good test, a good way to gauge like what his level in a league like that really is. I think the whole thing was he was going to try and help them get promoted, and he did his ACL in his like third or fourth game with them, and we never got to see it. And that is unfortunate because I have little doubt in my mind that he would have done pretty well there, if not really well. The things about Jordan's game that make him effective in MLS, speed and power like that doesn't go away just because you're in the English Championship. It's a lot harder to use those tools to great effect theoretically, although I don't even know how good the Championship really is. Everyone would tell you that it's like light years beyond MLS. I'm sure the level's a little higher. I don't know if it's like as crazy a difference as people would have you believe. Is the Championship like that good? I don't think so. I think players who are in the Championship, if they were that good, they'd be in the Prem, would they not be? It's like not the most amazing league of all time just because it's in England. I don't know. I think that the whole thing about how he like stayed home for his dog and he's not like cut out for it. It was always bullshit. I called it as such at the time. USMNT fans don't like me for it. That's fine. I don't really like them either. That's why I sent my blazing hot tweets back in the day. So, Pepe, I don't know, man. I don't know. People will tell you that Pepe is light years better than Jordan Morris. Is he really? I know you're right. You guys are right that like statistically, he's one of the ones that has more goals. I forgot about him. Is Pepe so much better than Jordan Morris because he's banging in some goals in the Eredivisie? And he has all right, so he's got 13 goals and 33 caps. I like, if you want to argue Pepe, I'll accept it. I don't think it's like that big of a difference between the two. I'm obviously biased, but if you showed me a US starting 11 with Jordan Morris at the 9 or Pepe at the 9, I wouldn't think of it that differently. I wouldn't. You know why? Because Jordan has actually scored his goals in big moments for the USMNT, which Pepe is not really. Pepe scored 1 in World Cup qualifying, I want to say. I'm looking at Pepe's goals right now. Jordan scored against Mexico when he was in college. He scored against El Salvador on the road in Nations League. He doesn't have the same like Pirate of the Caribbean narrative that Ferreira had. He actually he had way more important good moments for the USMNT than people give him credit for. All right, apparently Pepe's better than I'm saying. You really what is Reese, what has Pepe done that's so like that makes you rate him so high? He's good. Scored a lot in the Dutch league, which is a league where I think I'm not trying to say the goals don't count. It's known as a high scoring league. All right. We got Pepe. I'm not gonna argue with the Pepe thing, but okay, that's like one example. That's one example. Everyone else I consider pretty much a joke. I had someone coming at me talking about how Haji Wright scored at the World Cup. That goal that he scored at the World Cup, that is the one goal I will ever argue doesn't count. That was the luckiest thing. I couldn't believe someone brought that goal up as like an example of why Haji Wright is like the chosen one. Like he was not trying to do that at all. Not even close. Pepe is good, but doesn't have that dog in him like Jordan does. Jordan has the Clint Dempsey influence, and Pepe doesn't. I really like. If you rate Pepe, it's fine. I'm sure he's pretty good. I haven't followed him that much in Eredivisie, so Reese, I honestly trust your judgment on it more than mine. If you rate him and you say that he's been playing really well and could be the striker that the USMNT needs, I personally don't rate them that differently. But we can't develop a 9 to save our lives. So I think the fact that Jordan actually has some of the best stats, both in terms of goals scored and there was a period of time, I don't know if this is still true, but there was a period of time where he had the highest goals and assists per 90 of any player in the pool besides Pulisic. That's not like to even say that Jordan is the most incredible striker of all time. That's just like what a sad ass sorry state U.S. soccer is in, that they can't develop any 9 at all. It's bad. Daryl DK, forgot about him. He was looking like he could be the guy for a minute there. I feel like he got derailed by injury. Starting 9 in the Dutch league, but like, if you drop Jordan into the Dutch league, do we think he would just like go silent? I feel like he would score a lot of goals in that league. That league is like as I understand it, I admittedly don't follow that league that much, but as I understand it, that league's reputation is like, if you're a striker or any attacking player that like needs minutes and confidence because you're in a bad run of form, get loaned to the Dutch league. That's sort of, and I think that's sort of what they were doing with Pepe. So Deuce is the Hanauer friendly. Oh, this is responding to Jesus Ferreira is a Hanauer budget friendly Deuce / Pepe. I guess. I think like the idea is that they got Ferreira for less than he's worth. Like realistically, he's been a DP quality player in the league, and they got him for less than that. So that's like the idea. Maybe that's what you mean by budget friendly. What will be the more positive outcome, Sounders in the Club World Cup or USMNT in the 26 World Cup? I mean, if I had to guess that right now, I would honestly say Sounders in the Club World Cup. USMNT is a joke, man. It's like Atlanta United, man. There's something like rotten to the core. Because these games that they've been playing under Pochettino, it's like embarrassing. I don't think there's any other way to put it. Feel if USMNT in Club World Cup does worse, or in World Cup does worse than the Sounders in Club World Cup, something has gone wrong. Yeah, you're right. And something has gone wrong deeply, because that team is ass. They're not good. They're just, if they want to stop guys like me from saying that and clowning on them, they got to play better, a lot better than they were playing in Nations League, because that was sorry as hell. And, I've been doing a bit about how I defect to Canada for a while, and a lot of that is rooted in bitterness about how I was treated during the famous Jordan Morris debate of like 2019 or whatever that was that I'm referencing. But they make it pretty easy to clown on him. They do. And if they want to stop getting clowned on by me or anyone else, they got to like become a real team and not whatever that was in Nations League, because this Pochettino stuff. Whew. All right. Reese, are these Pepe stats? Okay. I like this. You're bringing in facts. You're bringing in facts to support your point. I can always support that. because I don't pay attention to this. 1.27 non-penalty goals from 0.82 expected goals per game. Those are pretty insane numbers. I don't know. I don't think I can even say that doesn't count because it's the Dutch league. I think you're right. I think you're probably right. He's balling. I think my original point stands. It's not like there's a wealth of options that are better than Jordan Morris. I'm not even saying they should call him in. My point is that it's sorry as hell that they don't all the fans talk about how big of a joke he is for staying in MLS and not going to the Bundesliga. And then why have all the forwards other than Pepe been totally useless? Even Balogun. I was super high on Balogun when they pulled that one off. I feel like he hasn't done that much. Has he even done that much? I feel like he's injured. Scored a few goals. He scored a few goals in the Nations League where the USMNT played well a couple years ago. Balogun looked good. But he has not been the needle mover that he was billed as. I think it's fair to say. We are still here, workflow. I'm about to wrap it up, though. I'm coming up on 2.5 hours. I guess I was feeling it tonight. Striker problem since Lando and Deuce. Yeah, exactly. They never... I think Dempsey's just the best player that we ever could create. That's what it seems like. Pulisic is good. I know I'm a hater, or I'm a hater on the team and on him a little bit in particular, but he is a player. His run at Chelsea a couple years ago was genuinely impressive. The COVID year. So 5 years ago. But as I understand it, he is doing quite well in Serie A with AC Milan. And he's he's good. He's good. There's a couple guys who are in that player pool that actually have standing to be like, I'm a worthy player for this team and at this level. He is one of them. I put Weston, I guess, in that category, although he looked pretty bad in Nations League, I thought. Tyler Adams, Noah and I make fun of him a lot because of his famous I'm the best in the world, I'm the best midfielder in the world quote. Noah says he's ass. I don't think he's ass. I think he's good. He's just not what he claimed to be. And that quote honestly it was an example of like this self-importance that I think we got going on in that player pool. That's not earned. You earn self-importance like that. Tyler Adams, if he wants to be considered like that, the team's got to be performing a lot better. BC Place, no, I'm not traveling. I'm just working working it from right here. I don't think they would ever have me traveling for like a CCC game like this. I would travel if Seattle was playing in it, and maybe if the final was at a West Coast place, they would send me to that. They've sent me to 2 of the West Coast MLS Cups. 3. They sent me the West Finals and the Cups both years that LAFC and the Galaxy were in it. They sent me to Portland the year that Portland lost it to NYC, which that was it's kind of weird getting sent, being in Portland for a game that the Sounders weren't playing them in and it being MLS Cup. But I honestly had the best time of anybody at that game because that was a really awesome game, entertainment wise. And then the Timbies lost in heartbreaking fashion. And, the whole stadium was super devastated. And I was just sitting there I don't know. That's fine with me. It's fine with me. Yeah, I've been to BC Place a bunch of times for Sounders games. It's sick. And also, this is the best Whitecaps team I've ever seen. So I'm definitely trying to go in Seattle. They didn't already go there this year, did they? Am I tripping? I don't think they did. I'll probably go to that. I'm going to go to Portland next month as well. We're going to try and do some content from down there. All right, guys, I'm coming up on 2.5 hours. This was a marathon sesh. So you guys already know what time it is. You guys already know. It's time to turn on the lo-fi, wrap it up here. If you got any last questions, topics, agendas, grievances, go ahead and drop them in chat. I'll try and get to them before I call it a night. How do you get your start with MLS? It's a good question. I don't know if I've ever divulged that lore. I got started with MLS because I was looking for any jobs when I was graduating college, and I had done a PI where they basically gave me the Sounders beat, and I got some really good writing samples out of that. And the story is, I went and shadowed at the Seattle Times. I was like trying to do journalism stuff. I interned for Seattle PI. I was sports editor for the school paper. I shadowed at the Seattle Times, and I had a meeting with a guy by the name of Josh Mayers, who used to be the Seattle Sounders beat reporter for the Seattle Times. And he was leaving the beat at the time. And I was kind of asking him like about being his replacement, which at the time I hadn't even graduated college yet. So the idea that I would slide right in as like the full-time Seattle Times Sounders beat writer was probably a little pie in the sky. But at the time I was like, I could do that. I have these samples, covered a few of the games. I know what's up. I could do this. And he was like, they're probably going to look for someone who's done this before, but I'm going to give you the contact info for a guy by the name of Jeremiah Oshan, who's the beat writer for MLS Soccer, who's leaving his position. And it's more of like a freelance part-time role, but I'll give you his contact info and have him talk to you about maybe being his replacement. And I was like, wow, thank you, Josh Mayers. I just met you 5 minutes ago and you're going to hook me up like that? God damn. So I emailed Jeremiah and I sent him my clips from PI. He sent those to a guy by the name of Matthew Doyle, the armchair analyst who was doing more editing at the time. Got an email from Matt Doyle at my house in Bellingham. And he said, we need you to do a trial run on the Sounders beat. We're going to have you cover training and cover a couple games. And if you do a good job, you're the new Sounders beat writer for MLS Soccer. Congratulations. I was like, sick. Don't live in Seattle right now. Didn't tell him that. Called up my friend who had just moved there. We were all like graduating right at this time. I called up my friend who had just moved in Seattle and I said, I really need to stay on your couch for like 2 weeks while I do this trial. He was like, hell yeah. So I drove to Seattle before I graduated. Crashed on my friend's couch. Did my 2-week trial on the Sounders beat. And I never went back to Bellingham. I went back to Bellingham to get all my shit and move it to Seattle when I found my own place. But that was it. That's the story. Never went back to school. I did my last class online and I did graduate. I can show you guys the diploma. I did graduate. Cut it close though. It was funny though because they like didn't ask if I graduated, which I was like, don't you guys want to see my? Literally didn't ask. Yeah, I went to WW. Western Front. Exactly. I was the sports editor for the Western Front. Most memorable Sounders match you've covered. Dude, honestly, red card wedding. I'll never forget that night. I was unbelievable. That was one of those games that was so good that like the content was so good that the Sounders like I wasn't even mad that they lost. I wasn't even mad. Like I think most Sounders fans were like, whatever, like that was awesome. I don't care. But then I think you got to throw MLS Cup 2019 and the Champions League final in there just for the magnitude and history of it. But there's something just different about the red card wedding because of it being at Starfire and just like the lore that came out of it. And that was like my second year on the beat. So I was still pretty new to it. It's like, damn. That was a really good one. Jordan starting over Moose Saturday. That's the question. We were talking about that earlier. You know, like the ride the hot hand versus get your normal first choice starters back in debate. And my take, Reese, was with, I think for this game in particular, it's going to be more of a question in the weeks ahead. But this game in particular, you can justify riding the hot hand and giving the team that destroyed Nashville another run. And then give Morris and Rusnak more like 30. I would like when talking about Moose and Jordan specifically. I would if I was the coach, if I was Schmetz, I would do Moose 60, Jordan 30, kind of like they did against Nashville, or maybe Jordan might not have even gotten that. I would do Moose 60, Jordan 30, just because of fitness, not like even because of the hot hand necessarily. But if they feel like Jordan's good for 60, then I don't mind Jordan 60, Moose 30. He does love his starters, but it is also a situation where the team he put out there in the last game balled out. So I feel like when this situation has happened in the past, he actually just did it from the Dallas game to the Nashville game. The team that put in the work and got the dub in Dallas ended up being he ran it back when Morris and Rusnak were on the bench, which that is probably fitness related, but maybe means that, I don't know. I'm kind of curious now that they're a little healthier. Curious to see how they do it, but I'm really looking forward to watching De La Vega play again. Him scoring that goal, that was great to see. Man, what if he becomes like an impact player? Team could be good. Joined late, you probably covered this. How many minutes for Kent in the upcoming match? We didn't really actually talk about that specifically. I hope it's more like 20 or 30 than like 5 to 10 or whatever it was in this last game. I hope it's enough. Like 20 to 30 is what I consider like enough time to actually make your mark on the game, right? And I'm excited to see like what he can do given that many minutes, you know? Like I saw some intriguing stuff, folks. The no-looker, like 2 minutes into his MLS debut. I'm fiending for it too. He teased us with that no look. He was like, look, this is the stuff that I do. I lift bums off seats, to quote him directly. My bum wasn't off the seat because you're not supposed to do that in the press box, but I think there was a few at Lumen when he did that. Oh man, the Sounders posted a clip of like the field view of that assist. It was a true no-looker. Wasn't like one of those fake no-looks. Wasn't like a fake Matthew Stafford in the Super Bowl no-look. It was like a real no-looker. He was like, in those 10 minutes, he did like 3 things where I was like, wasn't even expecting that. He might be disgusting at the sport. Oh, you didn't see the no look, Henry? Let me see if I can find this clip for you guys. This will be the last thing. They got a really good shot of it. I think there was like a tiny bit too much weight on the pass. which that's honestly doesn't even take away from it at all. All right, I got to turn the lo-fi off though.
Well, there comes the newest acquisition by the Sounders. It's going to be Ryan Kent for Paul Rothrock. Like for like switch.
Jack got the juice. Boy, too clean.
Oh, there it was.
Jack got the juice. Boy, too clean.
Ryan Kent for Paul Rothrock. Like for like switch.
Jack got the juice. Boy, too clean. Running my jeans. All of my rules.
Turn the sound off just in case I get. Play it one more time. It's nice. It was nice. All right, guys, I'm going to call it on that. Went 240. God damn, that was a long one, but that was fun. Thank you guys for tuning in. Like the video, comment, subscribe. Follow us on Instagram. We just hit 400 on there, which our journey to credibility on Instagram is going pretty well. I want 1K on Instagram, and then I'll never show it again. But we got to 400. Follow us on Instagram. Shout out to Mark Asher Goodman and holding the high line for doing our opponent preview tonight. It was really good stuff. What else? Like, comment, subscribe on everything, and tell all your friends. Tell Ryan Kent. I'm going to be, oh man, I didn't even talk about CCC. I was going to. I'm covering that game tomorrow night, so this is the stream that's replacing that. But we'll be back at it. I think we can do a post-game live for sure because it's a road game, so it's really no problem. It's really the home games where I'm kind of figuring that we have to do those the next day, at least right now, till we can figure out a more workable setup to maybe do the shows actually from Lumen. But yeah, we should have post game live and take calls on Saturday. Nico and I will be back at it on Monday morning at 8 a.m. for Lobbing Scorchers kickoff. So the content's going to keep churning. We're not going anywhere. See you guys post game on Saturday. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Appreciate it. Peace. Don't want to give money to the oligarchs, but love Lobbing Scorchers? Do we have a deal for you? MLS Season Pass is back on Apple TV with access to every single MLS match, including Leagues Cup and the entire Audi MLS Cup playoffs with no blackouts. It's not just the games, you get total access to the pre- and post-match MLS 360 whip-around show in both English and Spanish, and get live look-ins and highlights from around the league, as well as full match replays and recaps. Now, you can support our show by visiting lobbingscorchers.com/Apple TV to purchase your subscription and support our show.
Lobbingscorchers.com/Apple TV. Please, don't let the oligarchs win.